Two men enter, one man leaves. I'm Liam, he's Rob, and welcome to the third part of our End of the World season of podcasts. This week, we take a look back at what many consider to be the red-headed stepchild of the Mad Max series, but one that just as many remember fondly for its bold premise, memorable cast, and yet I'm going to say a belter of a soundtrack. I mean, shit, Roger Ebert included this in his 10 best movies of 1985, so it can't all be bad. The fact is, though, Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome was always the ultimate movie of two halves, and so it remains today. A wonderfully imaginative and evocative first half eventually gives way to, well, a bunch of annoying kids delivering far too much in the way of truly annoying dialogue. Remember? Is it deserving of its place at the bottom of the Mad Max barrel, though, or has time ultimately been kind to this uneven but oddly iconic movie? Now, I don't know about you, Rob, but my relationship with this movie is very similar to that of Return of the Jedi. Now, I know you're not a Star Wars guy, but growing up, this was my favorite Mad Max movie in the same way that Return of the Jedi was my favorite Star Wars film. And I feel like part of growing up alongside kind of drinking orange juice with pulp and enjoying olives is realizing that, Empire Strikes Back is actually the better movie. That actually it's, I was going to say Road Warrior. What's the second one called? Jesus Christ.
Mad Max to the Road Warrior.
It is the second one. Oh, yeah. Sorry, I was getting mixed up with Fury Road. You suddenly realize, oh no, the second film is a much better film. But make no mistake, this is still a really fun film. It's super uneven. It's really patchy, but I still think there's a lot to like about this film. And it's weird actually going back to the reviews. I'm not sure if you went back to them. The reviews are pretty good for this film. And when people think of this as being like the weakest Mad Max movie, it's because the Mad Max series is really consistent. Like you look at the reviews, they've all been reviewed well. This is the only one to get kind of like decent reviews rather than really good reviews.
I want to go back to, you said what you consider being a grown-up is enjoying olives and orange juice with pulp in them. Well, I must still be a child because both of those things sicken me.
Oh, dude, you clearly haven't grown up. I think that was clearly the hallmark of me. All of a sudden, one day, I'm just like, oh yeah, I've got to buy orange juice with pulp for the rest of my life. And olives are the fucking bomb. I love olives.
I don't like my liquid with bits in it. And I don't know what the fuck is going on with an olive. It's like salty. Oh no. Sorry. Anyway, so
you also don't like Empire Strikes Back, so you really are a child.
Yeah, absolutely. So my relationship with Mad Max is weird. I did see them as a child, but like I think I understood them more later. Like I did, I didn't go back to them. They weren't the films that I kept going back to. Like I understood them mainly. Like I think maybe the same case with you. Mad Max 3 was our age, and now I found out it was 1985. So that's the one, but that was more the kid-orientated one. And that is definitely the one that I remember, not fondly, I remember more.
As I grow up, I was actually thinking something you've brought up in this podcast a whole bunch of times. When you've said, oh, there's better films, but then it's quite often the sequel you remember more. And I think the examples we always used were Beverly Hills Cop and and what was the other one? The one with the guy's dead.
Weekend at Bernie's.
Weekend at Bernie's. Yeah, the first one was much, much better, but everyone remembers the set pieces from the second. It's similar with this. Like, there's two ways about it. Like, the second film's a better movie, but the third one is super iconic. Everyone remembers Thunderdome, regardless of what might happen in the second half of the movie.
I mean, yeah, that's why you like Thunderdome is what gave you the post-apocalyptic look for other films. The shoulder pads, the mohawks, things like that. You would remember Mad Max 3 more. For then again, fucking Wes had shoulder pads and mohawk and Mad Max 2,
there's elements of the second one. I agree with you that were already present there, but the way they kind of, I don't know, stretch out the world and the idea of the wasteland, and it's Bardstown in particular. And the one thing I think where it's been especially influential on is actually video games. So when you watch it and you've got on the top level, you've got Bardstown, and then below it, you've got the underworld. To me, at least, it feels super video game. It feels like it could be from like Fallout. It feels like it could be from Borderlands. It feels like this has influenced a million and one video games. Of course, there's been the more direct influences of Thunderdome itself with like the hip hop videos of the late 90s and all that jazz. But in terms of like the style and the aesthetic, sure, the shoulder pads and everything else was already there. But in terms of world building, I feel like this movie in particular was massively influential on pop culture.
Something I've noticed that you say quite a lot on the podcast, especially the last few films, and I don't usually think the same as that, and you've already said it for this one as well. But I definitely, clearly felt it in this one. It was a game of two halves. The first time you get straight into Bartertown, you get straight into the action, you get straight into right. I need you to like. I don't even think half an hour has gone by, and he's already on the horse on his way to
Yeah,
wherever he needs
that
to
was.
be.
I say this is a movie of two halves. I always thought in my head that the horse sequence was like the midway point. It's not at
Yeah,
all. It happens
no,
really early in the film. Thunderdome comes and goes real fucking quick.
do you know? Yeah, sorry. So, and then you get to, and you already said it, the way these kids are talking and everything like that, and it's very interesting to go straight to the end with these kids. Are they the survivors of the plane crash, or
Yes.
are they the kids? Because
Oh.
if you look at technically the
Mhm.
world, apparently this is meant to be set 15 years after Mad Max 1.
Yeah. Yeah. We're going to
Well,
get straight into the very messy weeds of
yeah.
the timeline of Mad Max. Yeah.
So were there still planes when Mad Max was an interceptor or whatever he was? Okay,
Mhm.
so because that is definitely a commercial plane crash.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah.
So, or did that crash beforehand,
Mhm.
and the offspring of the survivors? Because some
Mhm.
of those kids are 4 or 5 at a push.
Mhm. Mhm.
They're
No,
not
I think I've
old
got
enough
it
to be
written
the
down as
survivors.
that some of them are the second generation of the people who crash landed there. Because obviously it's something of an oasis. They could have obviously survived. What I never really understand is why are there no adults? Like, I get it. Captain Walker has gone off with a crew to try and find, kind of society to try and figure out what's going on. Because my assumption is they've crashed, and again, it's another one of those weird things with the timeline in these films, because
Yeah,
when did the actual nuclear war happen? In my head, I'm like, oh, the plane went down because of the nuclear war. So the
yeah,
nuclear war initially, at least, happened between the first and the second movie. So the first movie is supposed to be set in the mid 80s, and it still includes a semblance of society. Then between the mid 80s and Road Warrior, which is set in the late 80s, the nuclear war happened, and you can see like society, like we talked about it when we did the Road Warrior podcast. The world has really gone to shit in the 3 years between between Mad Max and Mad Max
yeah.
2 the Road Warrior. Like in the first film, he goes on fucking holiday. There is still a semblance of society going on. Second film, it's a post-apocalyptic wasteland. Beyond Thunderdome is early 2000s, so we're talking, like I say, 15 years later. I have to go on the assumption this is second generation stuff, or some of the older kids are getting down to business. I don't know. But yeah, my big question was like Captain Walker and the parents or the grown-ups have all just bounced to go and look for society. Like, what the fuck's happened here? Like, maybe they go on the assumption that if we get to Sydney, everything's going to be fine. They just died out in the wasteland, and then just all these kids are there. Nobody's like, guys, we've got to leave at least one adult behind with these fucking kids. There's like 40 of them. And it's just like, no, 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 no. And like, how young were they that within like a couple of years they were all talking fucking nonsense speak, which
I
is
know.
without question. And this isn't me as a grown up. This was my brother and I watched this a lot when we were younger. As I say, it wasn't just my favorite one. This was of the Mad Max films, without question, the one we watched the most. And we hated those kids from a young age. And I hate them now. But to bring it back to the timeline, just in case anyone's interested, things get even crazier after that, because Fury Road then fucks it all up by stating that the nuclear war happened in 2015, but also sets Fury Road in 2050, which would have made a tiny bit of sense if, I think initially with Fury Road, when it was being written, it was supposed to be Mel Gibson was in it and he was going to be
Yeah,
old Max and all that jazz, but obviously they've had to recast him because he said some naughty words as Tom Hardy. And even then, you look at Furiosa, like I think the earliest parts of Furiosa set in 2030. So then you get into the whole question, and I always think this is an interesting one with Mad Max. Is Mad Max a mythical like figure? One, two. Are we just getting unreliable stories of people like they've had interactions with Max and they're telling stories about him, and that's why in this film, for instance, when Max gets to the kids encampment, whatever you want to call it, the painting on the wall is of him. Make no mistake, it's
yeah,
got the
yeah,
hair,
yeah.
the coat, and everything. And when he throws the hat up in the air, the hat fucking flies off, and it suddenly kind of leans into the whole idea of Max as this mythical like kind of character. But I always read it more as in these are people, and obviously they really lean into it in this film. it's a story being retold by people who have had these interactions with them, and they're all slightly unreliable. The third one, of course, is because that is totally fucked by the whole Tom Hardy thing in the timeline. Are we looking at a Dread Pirate Roberts, Princess Bride situation where Mad Max is literally they're two different people? He just takes on the mantle almost.
I said it on the Mad Max 2 podcast that I believe it's all stories. It
I
definitely,
agree with you. I agree with you.
because it definitely feels that more on this one. You
Mhm.
had the story being told by the older feral kid in the second one.
In the second one, sorry,
Yeah.
yes. Is it
And
Savannah in this one, yeah?
in this one, Savannah's telling it to all
Yeah.
the young ones when they're in the burnt down Sydney.
Mhm.
And then I wouldn't even think of Mad Max 4, Fury Road, but like I wouldn't try and put that in this timeline. For some reason, that feels like a different entity to me as well. In
Yeah, me
regard,
too.
and they're
But he
they're
has
all
the Interceptor back as well. Like
he
one
does
of the
have the
things that's
Interceptor back in
really
this one.
missing. No, he doesn't have the Interceptor in this one.
Well, he kind of does, doesn't he?
What he has like a buggy. It's a completely different vehicle. So
That
I
wasn't
actually think
no. I'm sure that was the Interceptor because the Interceptor's gone through all three films, but the Interceptor was just being pulled by camels. I'm sure that was the
it's
Interceptor.
not the Interceptor. Like I actually like wrote it down. I've got it down here somewhere because I was like, it's one of the things I thought that's really missing from the movie is the fact that you don't get the Interceptor. Now I'm struggling to find my goddamn notes on this, but it's actually like a buggy. It's more rounded because at first I think I always just assumed that it was the Interceptor, but the Interceptor actually gets destroyed at the end of the second one. So it makes sense that it's not in this. But I also feel like it's you feel it missing from the film because I would argue that it's one of the most iconic cars in movie history. So the Interceptor is a black Ford XB Pursuit Special, otherwise known as the Interceptor.
Yeah.
The one in this is a modified, it's referred to as the cow car or the camel wagon, but which I think is pretty lame by comparison. And I think it's a crime, actually, that it's referred to as the cow car, because one of the things I totally forgot, the end of this film, which is surprisingly awesome, because I always kind of split up and, it's the bit with the kids. The race at the end is amazing. There is a car covered in cowhide, driven by a cowboy with a cow hat on, which then Mel Gibson then drives as Mad Max.
Yeah.
And I was just like, how the fuck did I forget this happens? It's one of the coolest bits in the film.
So I wrote that down, right? What did I put? I know it was a cow one, but I said how many Dalmatians had to die for that one car?
Well, you could go for the Dalmatians too.
Yeah,
it could be that, but it's such like all the other vehicles are classic Mad Max. Of course, the train's imaginative and stuff, but aesthetically, it's all got that same vibe. And then all of a sudden, you got this fucking cowhide car. It's just like, and I was just in my head, like, it must just be there for like a shot, and then you forget about it or it gets blown up. Like, no, Max starts driving it then. I was just like, have I just blanked this from my memory? It's like, it's the coolest car in the film because, as I said, the Interceptor isn't in it, which is a massive shame. But
no, you're right. Sorry, I do apologize. I've just looked now at the
it's
car.
quite right.
So it's in Mad Max 2, Fury Road, and Furiosa, and obviously the video game.
And I'm pretty sure it gets destroyed in both Fury Road and the Road Warrior. It gets destroyed
in pretty much all of them, doesn't it?
Yeah, which is like that's the biggest shame about it. It's cool when it has an impact when it's destroyed on screen, but then also you're just like it's like destroying Ecto 1. You're like, fuck. I mean, yeah, cool, that's memorable and stuff, but what are we going to do in the next film? I think it's like right up there, top tier movie car, and I think it's missed in this film. But you don't actually get much in the way of the traditional driving stuff. It's like
no, you get the chase at the end, which is on the train track, and
yeah.
Do you know what I'm going to take away from this film more than I think I wanted to? Is the fact that this film loves a chant.
Oh, it really does.
Fuck me, I love the chant. 2 men enter, 1 man leave. That's fine, but they seem to have like the unwritten rules or the rules that anti-entity, which she is never actually called entity. She's just called
no,
anti.
She's not just anti. Yeah.
I'm guessing everyone has to repeat everything they said in a chant. So it was 2 men enter, 1 man leave. Bust the deal, face the wheel. Was another one.
Yeah.
What was his name? The weird hunchback, like I'm the master of ceremonies guy. Like, he was funny.
Yeah, he was really good, and I thought he actually added quite a bit. Edwin Hodgman as Dr. Dealgood.
Dr. Dealgood, yeah.
Because that's like a cool idea, Thunderdome, but the combination of Miller's kind of directorial style and then I think his actual performance, Edwin Hodgman's performance as Dr. Dealgood, adds a huge amount to it. Really does, gives it a sense of gravitas.
You get then to the end, to the kids. Fuck me, they love a chant. They love a chant. They love a weird, just I don't know, Children of the Corn hum. Max is like, "Will you all shut up?" Oh, fucking! Those kids were annoying. That one kid
Sorry.
who had the who had the weird horn coming out of his mouth like a microphone, and he had the LP
Oh
spinning,
yeah.
and they were calling it the whatever they were calling it, the wireless or
Whatever they were
he,
calling it, it was fucking annoying. I'll tell you that
he
much
was
right now.
he was walking like C-3PO through the desert.
It's interesting you mentioned C-3PO because that's what, like I mentioned earlier about Return of the Jedi, but the second half of this film really reminds me of like a grimier Amblin movie from, and I really do think it's evoking, you think it came out in 85. And it's really evoking, I think, in particular, Return of the Jedi and Temple of Doom. And the other movie actually reminded me a little bit of was one we did on this podcast just a couple of weeks ago, was Solar Babies. It has that same issue of there's no sense of scale. Like everywhere leads, like, it's supposed to be this giant wastelands, but people just seem to walk to like the next town and they're just there. And like, how are these people not fucking finding each other? It's insane. And it's even got its own version of Al Kid from fucking Solar Babies, where you get like this kid, he's got like this whole skull thing going on. And I'm just like, why is he like, they kind of hint that he might have something going on, but instead he just kind of wears a bowler hat later in the film. And he has his little cool action moment, but I was just like, he reminded me so much of Al Kid.
He doesn't really have an action moment as well. Like he does something and he ends up in the car.
Well, it's like he drives
the car.
Levity, isn't it?
How is he able to drive? They've lived in an abyss. They've lived in the Blue Lagoon. They're fucking like they lived in the Blue Lagoon as well with all those kids around. And then all of a sudden he can drive a car.
Yeah, they even play up to that at one point when he's sitting on the top and he kind of takes his hat off and pretends to drive like that might do it. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know how between that and then him showing at the end where he just kind of like, oh, I guess he's figured out driving. But yeah, I don't know. There's a few strange things in this film. I actually think they were like at one point we have to talk about Mel Gibson's mullet, of course, because I was actually looking at it and thinking it might be cinema's greatest mullet. Like it's such an extreme example of the mullet, and nobody pulls off a mullet quite like Mel Gibson. And in many respects, he keeps the second half of the movie on the tracks, no pun intended, just by being an absolute movie star in a way that. It's always there's going to be that comparison, like Mel Gibson versus Tom Hardy. Now, Tom Hardy arguably got the best movie with Fury Road. You can coin toss between that and Road Warrior. But he plays a different Max, and very much the whole Tom Hardy thing where he feels like he's a character actor who just happens to look like a model, whereas Mel Gibson, for all his kind of quiet nuance in this film, is still rocking that movie star charisma. Like he just totally and you really feel it in a movie which, like we said, the second half is pretty dicey at times. But it's never anything less than watchable simply because Mel Gibson's in it. And people have their opinions about Mel Gibson. But the one thing we can say unequivocally, he is one of the greatest movie stars of the 80s, like without question. And you can totally see this in the movie. Every time I see him on screen, I'm just like, God damn, he just looks the business. He even gets to, I totally forgot that he cleans Savannah's clock. He just punches a young girl in the face. And you're just like,
I mean, she kind of deserved it, mind. She wouldn't shut up.
She would not shut up.
But what was I going to say? I actually agree with you on this one because you have this weird thing of calling out the weirdest people to be the biggest movie stars, like fucking Michael Douglas. But
he was, yeah, it's fine.
I'll give you Mel Gibson. Mel Gibson was one of the.
You'll give me Mel Gibson.
I'll give you Mel Gibson.
Oh, God bless you.
I liked it at the beginning, right? When after what was it, Bruce Spence, who is back for some reason. After Bruce Spence,
just to be clear, a perfectly cast son.
Yeah,
it literally just looked like mini Bruce Spence. It's unbelievable. Is mini Jebediah or Jebediah Jr., whatever it is. It might be the most perfectly cast kid I've ever seen on screen.
So after they steal his stuff, and he's in the queue to get into Bartertown, that guy comes up to sell pure quality H2O. And then Mel Gibson pulls out his Geiger counter. I just love what the guy says as he's laughing, going away. What's a little fallout, eh? Just like...
Again, like you said, he's wearing rags. He's got that ridiculous mullet. And you see him, he's just like, God damn, he looks cool. But sorry, just because we mentioned Jebediah very quickly, and I think this leans into the whole idea that it's just being stories told by other people. At the end of the film, he turns the corner, sees Jebediah, and acts as if he doesn't know him. He's like, you, as if, oh, you're the guy who stole my stuff at the start.
Yeah.
But there doesn't seem to be any recollection that you actually spent quite a lot of time together in the second movie.
Not the same guy.
It's not the same guy.
No, Bruce Spence is playing two different guys. In this, he's playing Jebediah.
Mm-hmm.
And in the other one, he was just playing the what was
I just assumed he
Gyro
was
Captain. No, Just because they fly both times.
That's
I
not
mean,
the
you
same
could.
dude.
It's not the same. It's not the same character. No.
Oh, that is insane. That is
Yeah.
insane. They both fly. He's
Yeah.
one of the most kind of distinctive looking like actors in cinema. And you're like, no, you're playing different characters who
You
are
could
almost the same, but not quite.
because you could make an argument for the fact that because the what was it, the gyro captain, he fell in love with that blonde, didn't he? So maybe Jedediah Jew ended up being her kid. You could make that argument.
It totally
But the
makes
fact
sense.
of the matter is, as well, he was enamored by Max at the end.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, maybe he didn't recognize him when he stole his bike, his camel seater.
Yeah.
But he definitely would have recognized him when he was in Thunderdome. So you think he would have reached out? Because Jedediah is looking through the cage to watch him.
Well, it's the
Thunderdome.
bit at the end in particular when they're doing the chase and they come into Jedediah. When they come into his little cave thing and he sees him and he says, "You," like there's no like, "Oh my god, it's you" kind of thing. It's just weird. Like, but I had no idea that he's playing different characters, none whatsoever. But that brings me to me. Oh,
sorry, no. If you'll mention Jedediah, we'll get because I got it in my notes at this point. I love how Jedediah Jr. just abandoned him. Like he sees the train coming, he sees all the guys coming behind him. That's a great moment where he just stood on the mountain going, "This is a stick up," and he sees them all. He just fucks up. He's like, "No, this isn't for me." And he jumps into the back of the trunk of the car, goes down, runs through, and says, "Dad, people are coming." Dad doesn't move, and he goes, "All right, Dad, I warned you." And the next thing you know, we're all talking. The plane engine start. Jedediah Jr. was fucking off. If Jedediah didn't get to that plane quick enough, he's fucked.
Yeah, and all I was thinking throughout that whole sequence is how much Jedediah Jr. was dressed like Dark Helmet from Spaceballs when they go to the sand planet. Yeah, and he's got like the different hat and stuff. I was just like, he just looks like that.
It looked like Winnie the Pooh Dark Helmet as well because he didn't seem to have any bottoms on, just a big shirt. It was.
I think honestly, I'm still just trying to get with the fact that it's not the same character. I'm flabbergasted by that, flabbergasted. But one of the questions I wanted to ask you about this movie is this arguably a movie without a villain? Now, you can make an argument for like, what's his name? Iron Bar, who's really good in this film, super memorable. I know his whole shtick is he just doesn't die. Whatever, that's cool. But
played by Angry Anderson?
Yeah, from the rock band, right?
Yeah, from a Rose Tattoo. The other thing, sorry, you're about to ask me a question, but I will mention Iron Bar anyway, because what I loved about that character was, he was super annoying. The doll head was pissing me off, but they're in a chase to get Master back, okay? And he's just been covered in shit, but he's had enough time to have a shower and reapply the doll head back to his back.
Yeah, it gets very silly towards the end. Like it really leans into the joke. Like, let's be clear, he should have been dead 3-4 times over. And they don't even kind of pay lip service to the idea of like, oh, he might have been able to survive that. There were like 2 or 3 moments towards the end where it's just like, well, he's dead. And it's like, oh, no, he's back and apparently unscathed. So yeah, they were having a bit of fun with that. But
have you seen his IMDb?
No, I haven't. No.
I just realized his profile picture. It's a picture of train tracks.
Just train tracks.
It's a picture of the tracks, like as they go over the bridge.
From down below. Just when he's fallen off, kind of thing.
Just probably just before he falls off. Yeah, it's literally just a picture of train tracks. That's his.
I thought I had it in my head that maybe it was like because there's a scene where it's on the train tracks. The train is coming towards the camera, and he's still on the front of the train after he's been hit. Maybe they would go for that, but
no, it's just over the bridge.
It's strange that we've actually gone this far and not mentioned Auntie Entity, other than the fact that she's never mentioned as being an Auntie Entity specifically. She just references Auntie. And I always just knew it was Auntie. I was actually quite surprised with the whole Entity thing. Tina Turner has hardly been in any movies. I mean, what was we've covered one of the movies she made a cameo in. We did recently. Oh, Last Action Hero. She was in that.
I thought.
I'm sure.
It was Pam Grier, wasn't it?
No, Pam Grier was in.
Pam Grier was in Bill and Ted.
Bill and Ted, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But I think she's really good in this. Like, she looks amazing. Like, she looks so fucking 80s. There are a few things in this film which are just like incredibly 80s. Like, you know, Mel Gibson walks in and he's got the hair. You're just like, man, that's 80s. And then you see fucking Tina Turner with her hair and her shoulder pads. Like, wow, this can't get any more 80s. And then they just have random saxophone. You're like, okay, we're just gonna keep upping it now. We're just gonna get more and more 80s.
Random, I don't know, blind Japanese gonna sit in a nappy saxophone. I know it's not a nappy.
Just but it has that look about it.
Yeah.
But my point about and it's a shame almost that, again, one of my other issues with the film, it's not just the fact that you get the annoying kids, is that you move the emphasis away from Bardstown, and specifically you move the emphasis away from Tina Turner, because I think they have great chemistry on screen. And I think she's a really interesting character, because ostensibly she's supposed to be the villain of the piece. But is she a villain at all? Like, like, of course she's doing some pretty ropey things, but she's trying to recreate society within the confines of the wasteland. So basically what she really is she's just being a politician. And she's like, you know, if anything, Master downstairs is being so fucking obdurate and a prick. It's like, she just wants to, she is literally trying to bring society back to the world. Of course, it's not going to be perfect. They're not just going to go back. Like, you know, she's going to have to put some pretty harsh rules in place. But even Thunderdome itself, this whole idea, like, you can't just go around killing each other. If you've got a beef, you've got to do it in the Thunderdome. It's kind of like, you know, the Wild West. You know, you have a shootout at dawn. You deal with, like, you know, deal with your issues like men, whatever you want to call it. But like, you even, like, towards the end of the film, there's this sense of almost celebration when they blow up Bardstown. I was like, Bardstown's the closest thing you've got to society. Why the fuck would you want to blow up Bardstown? It's like, it's as close to civilized as the world has probably been for 15 years. And I was just like, you know, in my head, I was like, oh yeah, Auntie's the bad guy, bad girl, whatever you want to call her. But I was rewatching the film, I'm just like, she's not particularly bad at all. If anything, she's the one person trying to do something good in the world. And of course, like a politician, she has to do some things which are relatively underhanded to get away. Sure.
Yeah, it's shady.
Yeah, she's shady, but I think she has to be because she wants to retain power and stuff like that. Of course she does. But, you know, you're not going to, you know, kind of reestablish society being all nicey. It's like, yeah, you're going to have to play it, you know, with a bit of an iron fist. But I was watching, I was just like, I think Auntie might be the fucking hero of the movie. And maybe it's just because I fucking love Tina Turner now. I don't know.
I did like, so for the wig, you mentioned her hair, which was a wig.
It's great.
But the wig wouldn't fit over her hair. So she shaved her head. And she was happy to just shave the head. She's like, yeah, shave it off. Just put the wig on.
Well, this is peak Tina Turner. And you know, when you're watching a film, you have kind of like fond memories of it. You're like, oh, how am I going to feel about this film now? I knew I was going to enjoy this film literally the moment it started. I fucking love the opening credits. Like, visually, they're nothing special, but there's something about the way the names come to the screen.
Yeah.
And that song, everyone remembers We Don't Need Another Hero. I think One for the Living is the true fucking banger from this film. And that's what they use in the opening credits. And
is that the one you sent me? Which one did you send me?
And there's a music... Yeah, I sent you that one.
Okay, yeah.
And if you haven't seen the video, because there's the album version of One for the Living, but there's the movie version as well. The movie version has Tim Capello in the fucking video. If you don't know who Tim Capello is, he's the fucking saxophone guy from The Lost Boys. So again, just in case you're wondering how fucking 80s is this film, it's that fucking 80s. You know, if it's not a blind Japanese guy in the movie playing saxophone, it's fucking Tim Capello playing saxophone in the song. But there's something about that song and those opening credits. I literally sat there with a shit-eating grin on my face, like, I'm going to enjoy this. And there's something about that song and those lyrics where, you know, like, there are certain songs where you don't just sing along to it. You kind of sing along and pull a face when you do it.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just the Tina Turner thing, but I was just like, fuck yeah, I'm going to enjoy this film.
You've mentioned the saxophone a few times, right?
Mm-hmm.
What a weird thing to do a callback from the first film, the saxophone. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's a word for it. I don't know what the word is, but when you think it's like the soundtrack, but it's not the soundtrack, it actually exists in the narrative of the film.
Yeah, there is a term for it. Yes,
I think I'll find it in a sec while I keep talking. But it's very interesting that you have that in the first film. You hear the soundtrack, the saxophone playing, and then it's Max's wife.
Yeah.
And then they call it back into this. You've got the saxophone playing, you've got Auntie Entity in silhouette behind the net curtain. You think, oh, is she playing the saxophone? Because it's just, and then no, like you said, it's weird Japanese guy. But it was just like, of all the things to call back from the first one, that's the thing you call back. That's amazing.
It's a strange one, but in many respects, it's a very strange, very, very 80s movie. And I obviously we'll get to the ratings in a bit. I don't want you to kind of play your card necessarily, but I know you don't have the same attachment necessarily to this film specifically. But you've seen all 5 films now, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't want to say I don't want to say I've seen Furiosa, not because of anything other than I don't remember it. Now the problem was I watched it with Dave, frequent collaborator on the podcast. We'd watched the Ministry of Ungentlemanly
Strange.
Warfare.
I watched that this weekend.
Yeah.
Ministry of Ungentlemanly
So
Warfare.
we watched it beforehand. We'd already started drinking.
And that's
So
a long film as well. Yeah.
By the time Furiosa came on, we'd already been drinking anyway. I mean, we didn't have wives at this point. My wife was on holiday and he's left his wife at home. So we're having a couple of drinks. We're watching it. And I swear to you, I think we may even text you. This was back last year in August sometime. I swear I must have texted you saying, this film is weird. I felt like I'd been watching that film for 4 hours.
It's
and then
long.
When I kept pressing the button, like the reason why I say I don't rate that film because I don't remember it. I only remember bits of seeing Chris Hemsworth with his nose. All of a sudden, then you got fake Mad Max. Then you've got real Mad Max, and like I really don't. I need to go back and watch it.
No, it's
it's left such an imprint on me of thinking that film was awful. I don't want to go back and rewatch it yet.
It's definitely not awful. If you, I know what you mean. Like if you've just come off the Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare, which is a relatively long film, you've had a few drinks, and then you go into that film. One of the biggest issues with that film is that it's too long. The other issue is that like the reviews for it were amazing. The problem is it keeps evoking Fury Road without ever coming. And we've come across this loads of times with the podcast. It's like you have these like perfectly decent movies, but if you encourage comparison with superior movies, your film feels just worse by comparison. Like, you know, Furiosa in a vacuum is actually a pretty good movie, but it's not in a vacuum. You just, everything about it, you're just comparing it to Fury Road, and in every respect, it falls short. It's still like a 3-4 star film. I think it's a 3-star film. It's not bad, but and in many respects, it's actually a better movie than Thunderdome. It's certainly a more consistent one.
Yeah.
If you ask me though, which would I prefer to watch? 100% Thunderdome.
I think Thunderdome is more fun. Like
without question. And I bet you over time, despite the reviews, I bet you if you ask people 5-10 years from now, which do you prefer, like Furiosa or Thunderdome? I'm guessing it's going to be like fucking 9-1 in favor of Thunderdome.
From what I remember, Furiosa becomes more style over substance. Like, look, this is how it looks. This is like, well, these actions, blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. But in regards to Thunderdome, I do believe Thunderdome is the better film. Sorry, I found the word diegetic.
Diegetic, yes, good job. I'm glad you wrote that. Was going to drive me crazy. That was going to drive me crazy.
Diegetic. It's happened in the movie itself. It's on the soundtrack. So I enjoyed that.
But yeah, it was one of the weird things that we mentioned the whole idea of Auntie Entity being like a politician and her war against Master or Master Blaster, if you want to call him that. I found like again the whole idea that it was just too rushed, and like that's my big issue. It's like I said in my head. The first half is the Thunderdome and Bartstown, but they leave there super quick. And it's like as soon as Master makes any kind of like, we're going to turn off the power. Yeah. There's no like back and forth. She immediately just puts all the cans, like he's like, say who is king of Bartstown and all that jazz. And she just immediately throws in the towel. Master Blaster. I'm just like, fucking hell, like you can't give up that quick. Jesus Christ. If you want to run Bartstown and 1 minute ago, we're getting convinced that she's like a total badass. And then like it feels like a second later, she's like totally bitching out to Master Blaster at the first sign of trouble.
I'm all right with all of that though, because I feel that the narrative has done enough to make us think that she's been in this ongoing battle for a long time.
Yeah.
She's had people come in who failed the initiation, which is like everyone's just murdered them.
Right. Just to be clear, right? You know the initiation thing, just because you mentioned it. So the initiation isn't to go into Thunderdome, is it? She's running like basically trials to fight Master Blaster specifically, because when she says you're the first one to pass, I'm just like, well, it can't just be to go into Thunderdome. Otherwise, nobody would go into Thunderdome.
No, it'd be to because it looks like Master is. They haven't said it, but Master seems to be Blaster. Sorry. Seems to be the unofficial champ of Thunderdome.
So basically, she's been running trials to try and find someone who might stand a chance against him. Because basically, she's like, I'm going to put all my cards in on this dude to kill him.
Yeah.
So I have to be sure. Yeah, gotcha.
They've introduced the narrative for everything pretty much. It's
Hmm.
called Bartertown. You pretty much know what it is when you get there. You buy and trade. I mean, the guy beforehand, what they say, I can't remember he was given like looked like pelts,
Yeah, yeah,
and it
yeah.
was he could have something or an hour with a real woman,
Yeah, yeah,
which I
yeah.
thought was interesting. So that's fine. He moved on. He spat in his hand and shook it, but didn't say what he wanted. So
Hmm.
I still don't know what he chose. So you get all that, then you get like
It's kind of like,
the
like the stock exchange when you just see people shaking around pieces of paper and you're just
yeah,
like, how does this fucking work? It's just, all the difference is Bartown. It's just a lot of people spitting on their hands. I'm just like, I don't know what the deal is, but they seem happy about it. So let's just go with it.
you get the quick narrative introduction then of what Bartertown is, where it's run on. We have lights, we have power, all because of methane. That's fine. Then he goes down and he's introduced a Master Blaster, uh, perfect. Like sorry, physically,
Hmm.
he's introduced a Master Blaster physically, and then they have a little chat. And then when you get to the Who Run Bartertown thing, before any of that, she literally goes, "I thought we agreed no more embargoes." So he's
Hmm.
doing this power trip
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
times
yeah.
already. So it's not like she's having back and forth. She's already dealt with this shit. And the
Hmm.
quickest way to get the power back on is to play to his ego. To just
Yeah,
go
no,
right.
I agree with
So
you. And
I get
I
all
think,
that
I
narrative fine.
think,
And
I
yeah.
think you are absolutely right. I think it's a big part of the issue is me simply because I wanted like another 20 minutes in Bardstown. I think the movie would have been, I think it would have been a better movie
I
if
don't know. I don't know if it did. I don't need more.
I'm in no rush to get to the fucking Lost Boys, whatever the fuck
Yeah.
they're called.
I
So
don't need more of like the fucking Blue Lagoon Lord of the Flies shit. I don't need more of that.
mhm.
But I think the Bartertown thing, it wasn't big enough to give us more. There
Mhm.
wasn't much more that we were going to get.
I
I
think
did
there
like
could have
when,
been more about like the kind of political, like kind of like underhanded stuff behind the
but
scenes. And instead,
you
I
had
don't
an
know. You get enough.
yeah.
I
Yeah.
100% agree with you. There was enough for it to work narratively. I
Do you know what
just
made
think
me
you
laugh?
could have had more there. But
Do you know what made me laugh? You're talking about like the rules and everything. Pig Killer. He's
Mhm.
now named Pig Killer,
Mhm.
but he can't be the only one that killed a pig because he's got in life, and there was other guys with chains around their neck.
Mhm.
So are they all Pig Killer? Okay, that's fine. Maybe they are, but this is the guy we know as Pig Killer.
Mhm.
He killed the pig. I've said this like 4 times already now. Uh, to feed his little ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had little ones. What are you going to do?
Mhm.
He fucking abandoned them at the end of the film.
Well, yeah, I mean, we are going to get to the end at some point, and there are some weird questions at the end of the film in terms of who's been abandoned, who hasn't been. Fucking, we'll just deal with it now. Right, so you have the big chase sequence, yeah,
Yeah,
and Mad Max helps them get the plane off the ground. He does his hero thing, yeah.
yeah,
There's a big question mark towards the end of the film. Once he is like, I do actually love the thing with Auntie where, and again, the whole idea that, she's not actually the villain in this film. Like, she could have killed him there, but like ain't we a pair, Raggedy Man? Goodbye, soldier, and just says
yeah,
goodbye. And she just leaves him there. And he walks off. And one of the things I saw online were people suggesting that he's going to walk back to the Oasis to help the other kids who have just been left behind. There's a whole bunch of kids who are still there. And
yeah.
it's just like, I don't think he's doing that at all, for
No, he's
one.
not.
No, no, I don't think he is at all. But like you said, they're off on the plane. He's left his kids behind. But I guess you've got the opportunity. I guess mentally, he's of the mindset, I was just going to die in the pig farm. My family's probably going to move on. So I've got my chance to escape. I'm just going to take it. I was probably more concerned by the fact that somehow Master was dressed like a little English gentleman out of fucking nowhere. I was like, where the hell did you get the
Like,
little midget suit?
he had the fucking Ventrola thing, which played the LP.
Mm-hmm,
That was perfect. He had it all in there. He had the tea party, he had everything. But like all of a sudden, yeah, he just look. He had kids in the room, and he decided to just get dressed and become, as you say, a little English gentleman.
It was
What made
very,
me
very strange.
what? So I looked him up. Apparently, he's one of the most famous dwarfs, and he was acting for years.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
And he
he
is
was
goodness.
born. He was born in 1908.
Yeah,
He was 77 when he did this film.
that's crazy.
This was his last film because he died in 91. He was 83 when he died.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that math works. I'm sure it does. He was 83 when he died.
Mm-hmm.
Fucking 77 doing this right. He's already like, I mean, he's small anyway, so he's not doing a lot wherever people do it. So you wouldn't treat a 77-year-old like you treat them, I'm sure. They had him dangling off a fucking hook. They were dipping him in pig shit. He was
Stuff.
on people's backs. He was being held like a baby.
That
They're
was
ragging
another
this fucking
thing.
77-year-old guy around like he's nothing.
Speaking of the whole on the shoulder thing, I was wondering. I've already mentioned that I feel like there's a bunch of direct references to like Star Wars, Indiana Jones. There's like a scene with like a slide, for instance. It all, like I said, all feels very like, even kind
Yeah.
of a touch of the Goonies about it. But the whole Master Blaster thing is that like a kind of weird reference to Empire Strikes Back? With you think of like Luke and Yoda. So Luke's running around, he's got a Yoda on his back, and Yoda is ostensibly talking nonsense. He talks in riddles,
Yeah.
and it's kind of like the same thing here. It's like you've got Blaster kind of carrying around Master, and then Master speaking with his weird intonation, and it just feels like someone's seen that and gone like, oh, we can do like a gross wasteland version of that. I'm not sure if they did it on purpose, but it certainly evoked it as far as I was concerned.
I mean, I can see how you'd make the link. I don't know if I would clearly like say,
I never thought
but
about it before
yeah, but I
before
can
this watch,
definitely
and as I
see.
said, I was already in that kind of mindset where I just feel like there were loads of these little hints and references to. I was just like, there's no way that George Miller hadn't been sitting around watching Star Wars and Indiana Jones a lot before he directed this film. I just feel like their fingerprints are all over this, and that's one of the criticisms of this film is that this scene is like kind of like the famification. That's not a term, but you know what I mean, of the Mad Max saga. Like that was, for all the half decent reviews, one of the biggest criticisms, like, oh, you've taken this dark and gritty world and you've turned it into a bit of a fairground ride, like the Disneyfication, if you will. There is an element of that. It's the only PG-13 movie in the Mad Max series.
Yeah.
It is lacking the violence that you find in other films. I don't actually miss it a great deal. As I said, tonally, I don't mind it. But the second half in particular, it's not just the kids. We already mentioned it, the whole idea about them like telling a story of Max. It really leans into the whole mythical aspect of Max as a character.
I still don't
And it feels
understand
like
as
a
well.
different movie to the other ones.
I don't understand as well why they're in a rush to get to burnt out Sydney, where there's fucking sand everywhere. They're lighting fires inside buildings to lure Max back. Fine. Why would you leave the place where Max goes, I need water? All of a sudden, he's got more water than he can handle. They all seem to be fed pretty well. They're telling stories. They're having a good time. They seem to be protected. Why do you want to leave for a burnt out Sydney?
Well, in fairness, they don't know that. Like their world is kind of contained in there, and they're going purely off the basis. Remember, he does the whole thing. Remember those things we used to get it was cool actually to see it. Were they called viewfinders?
Yeah, the viewfinders. Yeah.
So they're seeing it, and they're seeing pictures of Sydney and of cities, and they're just like, "Oh, that is out there. If we can get beyond the desert," they're expecting to find Sydney as it was in the 80s, based on the images of the viewfinder. So I think like anywhere else, it's like, yeah, they've got something good, but they don't know how bad the rest of the world is, and that's what Max tries to do to them. Like he's like, no, there's nothing out there. You want to stay here, but of course they're not having that. They're all like kind of upbringing is built around this idea that Captain Walker's going to show up and we're going to escape and go off to the city and start a new life. And they kind of do that, but obviously it's not the kind of fairy tale version that they've kind of built up over the last 15 or so years, I guess. So I think that's all quite interesting. But
did Jedediah fly home, or is he fucked now? Is he just going to have to set up some start again? Just set up some weird shop.
I think he's setting up in Sydney as well, in Broke Sydney, which doesn't look like a great place to live at all. And I can't believe that there's a world where they show up in Sydney and they're the only people there. There's gonna, I just think there's gonna be like a zombie style situation where there's just gonna be fucking monsters running around and other kind of warlords and stuff. I just don't think these kids are rocking up in Sydney and just like, oh, we've got the place to ourselves, everything's fine. I'm like, I feel like it's gonna be rougher than that. But again, we're getting the storybook version of the story, aren't we?
If you're using as well, I'm jumping all over because I keep thinking this as we're talking. If you're using a gun as some sort of magic walking stick, I have the power stick. Would you not be interested in all the working mechanisms of that gun? Like, I really find it hard to believe that he didn't know he could fire something out of that gun.
I guess like that idea, like, okay, yeah, maybe he didn't have bullets.
He did have bullets. They were hanging up.
Oh, yeah.
Max pulled a bullet out.
Of course. Yeah, they should have figured that out. But then there's some weird stuff at the end of the film. Like, I actually find, like, if you get beyond the whole idea that the kids are quite annoying, which is tricky because they are super annoying, when they suddenly decide, when Max decides, oh, I'm going to go and save the kids who left the night before, it's like the first thing that bothers me is the fact that they all just wander off without shoes on. It's like if you ever walked on hot sand without shoes,
Yes,
it
yes, it's
fucking,
painful.
it's like, it's not, it goes well beyond painful to the point of like, you wouldn't be able to do it. You would just fucking fall over. Okay, they get there, they save the kids. It's all pretty low key, whatever. And then they go back to Bartertown, and I'm still not quite sure why they went back to Bartertown.
He went back for Master
Why?
because Master is the engineer. Master is the guy
Mm-hmm.
that will could help them start a new civilization. He did it with Bartertown. So
So
Master's the engineer.
that's Max's plan. Is like he wants to
I
go
think
and
so.
get.
Yeah.
See, I didn't think that was
but
clear at all.
I think
When they
that
went
plan.
back,
No, I don't think
just
it's
like.
he literally says it, doesn't he? He says something about we'll get the little guy. He's an end like he's the
Oh,
guy that can help
maybe
us.
it's a kind of like fix the plane or something.
Yeah, I think so. Or to help them bet. But what I'm thinking is, and this may be the fact that I'm just a miserable bastard.
Could be, could be.
It could be. I don't understand why Max went after them. He's settled. He's got some nice drinking water, nice swim. He's got people around him that's going to help him. They're the ones that didn't want to leave.
That is
Why didn't he just
pretty.
turn around and say fuck him?
That is pretty mean. I think that they that is again one of the questions and one of the issues that people have with this film is that it kind of despite the fact that he only just punched a young woman in the face, it does kind of like take off his sharper edges and makes him a kind of more relatable, kind of hero-like figure. And you get that with all the films, even in Fury Road, this idea that he's an asshole, he's out for himself, but when push comes to shove, he does tend to do the right thing. And at the end of the day, you are talking about a bunch of kids where he's like, listen, these kids do not know what they're fucking doing. If I don't go and save them, they're going to die. So
he's doing the right thing.
Yeah.
He's doing the right thing for him. It's always for him at the end of the day.
See, I don't think it's all. I think he is always doing the right thing, but I think in those extreme situations, which that really is, like it's a binary situation as far as he's concerned. It's like I could just stay here at the fucking oasis and just drink this water and chill. But if I do that, those kids are going to die. They are going to die.
Yeah.
And I think he has.
They chose to leave after his warnings. Fuck them. Send them on their way. They spent all this time.
This is the Rob version rather than the Mad Max version. See, even Mad Max has a heart, unlike you. He was just like, fuck, man, I want to stay here, but I can't let those kids die. I love the fact that as a father as well, you're just like, fuck those kids. But you're just like, those kids are much more annoying than my kids. Fuck them. They can go.
That's not my kid. I'd go to the ends of the earth for my kid. I would dig him out of the sand. I would go through all that pig shit for my kid.
But
those kids that don't fucking listen to their elders, they can fuck off.
I mean, right, don't get me wrong. Narratively, I agree with what Max did, but I totally understand where you're coming from because those kids were super annoying. As soon as, because going into this film, I really was going in with that mentality of like, don't get just annoyed by their voices and the speech thing. Just try and get over that and see the film for what it is. And then as soon as they started talking, I'm just like, no, I can't stand them. I cannot stand hearing them talk. When they do the little presentation thing, it was like fucking nails on a chalkboard. Yeah. So don't get me wrong. Narratively, I'm with Max, but realistically, I'm with you. Fuck him. Just let him die. Stay in chill.
I knew you would be. You're a miserable bastard like me.
No, I try and see both ways. But yeah, fundamentally, I still agree. And then maybe he was just thanking them. He's just like, listen, these kids, for all of their faults, have given me a dope ass haircut, because that is one thing you've got to give him. Like, they gave him a great haircut, man. He had that mullet thing going on. The haircut he had was dope. They did it with like a knife or something like that.
What did they do with the hair they kept stealing? They stole his hair.
That's just weird.
And speaking of, I did love the anti-entity, I guess, army outfit. Mm-hmm. If you're going to be part of the anti-entity Bartertown police force, as it were, mm-hmm. It's mohawks and shoulder pads.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. And I think anyone, if you're in like a movie in the 80s, like you should either have shoulder pads and a mohawk, which I think is just quintessential 80s wasteland gear, and you don't get it so much in like the bigger movies. I feel like it was more kind of pushed towards kind of like B-movie level fantasy, but you do get it in this film, just absolutely yoked topless people or wearing basically fuck all, just doing really menial jobs. So there's a bit where you get like two people and they're basically just controlling the lift for anti-entity, and they're absolutely shredded, covered in oil. I'm just like, oh yeah, that's what you think of all those like fantasy novels you used to get in the 80s. Every character on the front looked like that. It all comes from like who's the guy who did Conan? Like that art style.
Oh,
Like
Was it Roger? Was it Roger?
I can't remember. You'd have to look it
I'll
up.
find it out. Yeah,
But
yeah.
the artwork that that Conan kind of I guess made popular at the time was taken on into fantasy books, taken into popular
Robert
culture.
E. Howard.
Robert E. Howard, thank you very much. And you used to get it on like video VHSs in particular back in the 80s. You get like these movies where you get like the characters on the poster would be fucking yoked, and then you'd see him in the movie and be like, well, that was clearly a painting. Where did all their muscles go? This is ridiculous. Well, these two actually had the muscles, but obviously not the acting chops. So they were just in control of doing the lift. So yeah, you either have to be totally yoked and greased up, or it's the shoulder pads and the mohawk.
You would be fucking like you said, shredded mind if you do it, because that not only did that not look like a lift that was only happening once or twice a day, that seems to be in constant use. Look at the
Yeah.
guys. Look at the guys you're hiking up as well. That fucking dealer guy, like he's a good 20 stone. You fucking picking
See,
him
this
up.
is 80s kind of muscle theory again, where I'm just like, oh yeah, they're doing that all day. They're going to be absolutely yoked. It's like they're not getting the protein they need to be that fucking muscly. It's like that was one. Don't get me wrong. I have a million and one issues with Terminator Genesis, but one of the biggest was when fucking Reese shows up and he's absolutely jacked. I'm like, he comes from this like fucking. You think of Reese in the original Terminator. He's like emancipated, like as he's supposed to be. And sorry, emancipated, emaciated. Sorry. He's the coach just fucking hanging off him. Of course he is, because he lives in a post-apocalyptic wasteland where people are just struggling to survive. Whereas Reese shows up in fucking Terminator Genesis and he's just doing creatine every fucking morning. It's like, oh, come on, guys. Then you could get, oddly, Terminators from the 80s. 80s movies could kind of get away with that in a kind of winky, nudgy kind of way. But yeah, not nowadays. Ridiculous. Just leave it back in the 80s, Sad, as far as I'm concerned.
Back in the
I don't know why I've picked up on that. It felt like quite a Rob thing for me to pick up on one very specific thing and kind of completely go off on a tangent. But
if Max has all those weapons, okay,
so many weapons,
so many weapons, he pulling out of every orifice. Maybe check the riding crop. I mean, I'm just saying, he kept that in his mouth as if to say, like, I'm just saying, check the riding crop.
And just about that scene, I do love a great gear, or I'd refer to it as a gear down sequence. So usually you think of like a gearing up sequence, and like the quintessential one, to this day, I still think is Commander. That's the one where all others have come from.
Yeah.
But the down sequence is quite underrated. When you get someone, you're just like, oh, give me your weapons, like, put them on the table, and it just gets ludicrous. And this film really leans, like, it's very self-aware. I mean, the amount of weight he must have been carrying into that coat. How many weapons does he put down in the end? Like fucking 14.
Fucking loads, yeah.
Like you wouldn't be able to move. Jesus Christ! You talk about those two people being fucking absolutely yoked because they're doing a lift all day. If you are carrying that around, Jesus Christ, unbelievable. But very cool all the same.
We call this a George Miller film. We haven't actually said it wasn't just George Miller, mind. It was directed by George Miller and George Ogilvy, who's a friend of George Miller. Because Miller asked Ogilvy to come along after the death of Byron Kennedy, who was one of the writers and I believe a producer.
Yeah,
he was really good friends. Yeah, really good friends with George Miller. So he kind of just lost it and said, like, so I don't know how much was Miller or how much was Ogilvy in it.
No, and it's weird, isn't it? And I was wondering if that was one of the reasons why this is maybe the patchiest film in the series, is because I think it was the combination of you have two directors, and on top of that, I mean, George Miller himself has said he probably wasn't ready to make this film. He was like really good. It wasn't just his producing partner. I think he was really close to Byron Kennedy, and he said he was mourning his friend, and eventually he said, "Well, you've just got to do something." He's just like, well, we're just going to make the movie because otherwise I'm just going to sit around moping. So, was his head quite in the right place? Then you've got the whole kind of split production between the two directors. And, you think about all of his other films, you think like even, Happy Feet, Babe, stuff like that. They're very kind of singular visions. You can say what you will about Babe. It's a really well-made film. And even if you just look at the Mad Max films alone, this is unquestionably, for all the things I love about this film, unquestionably the patchiest, most uneven film in the series. And it's hard not to imagine that that's had an impact on it. But because I don't think George Ogilvy directed much before. I know they'd done like a documentary, like a cricket documentary, I think, together before this. I don't think he's gone on to direct much else, but obviously, George Miller has gone on to have quite the career.
So they did together a TV miniseries in '83 called The
Mhm.
Dismissal.
That was the cricket one, wasn't it?
I don't know. It's just a miniseries. Is it the
I think
cricket one?
I thought it was a cricket one. I might be wrong.
The dismissal of Mr. Gough Whitlam as the Labour Prime Minister of Australia. So that doesn't sound
Okay,
cricket
that's
to
not
me.
it. No, no.
Yeah. Then they did Bodyline. No, no, sorry, he did Bodyline.
Hmm.
Maybe that is that's another TV miniseries.
Okay.
What's that? Bodyline, Bodyline. Captain Jardine's England team employs brutal bodyline tactic. Yeah, that's the cricket one.
Okay,
That's
fair enough.
Hugo Weaving. Fucking hell.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. And then he did Beyond Thunderdome. And he did a film called Short Changed. And yeah, so he hasn't really, I mean, the last thing he directed was a TV series back in 2006. So he hasn't done
Hmm.
much. But then, I mean, look at George Miller, mind. I mean,
He's had
yeah,
a
he did.
weird career.
Yeah,
Weird
because he
career.
did Mad Max and then Mad Max 2, and then he did Dismissal, I've just said. Then he did There's Something on the Wing,
Hmm.
Nightmare at 20,000 Feet, Twilight Zone, the movie.
Well, the weird ones
Uh,
was that, I think a lot of people associate him obviously with Mad Max, but it's like he had these massive hits with Happy Feet and Babe, like
yeah,
massive, massive hits. Even around the time, Babe, Pig in the City, all that jazz, huge films, and a
yeah.
million miles away from
Then
Mad Max. And the other one I always forget about is The Witches of
which is I
Eastwick.
was going to say, yeah, he just throws in a Witches of Eastwick just out of the
Is
blue.
that?
Just yeah, let's grab Jack Nicholson and share and just do this. But also one that like kind of went under the radar. He did that 3,000 Years of Longing with Idris Elba as a Jinn
Oh,
with
that was
Tilda
released a
Swinton.
couple of years ago, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
2022. Yeah,
Yeah, that made it to cinema as well. It had like a limited run, but it was in the cinemas. And I remember like it got decent reviews, and I just totally, honestly, I think I'd forgotten about it until this very moment. Just one of those songs like, oh, that's kind of cool. Maybe I'll watch it. And then just like 5 years have
I've
gone
never watched
past.
it. Yeah, yeah.
No, no, I just remember like seeing the trailers and being like, oh, it sounds interesting. It's George Miller. George Miller doesn't direct a huge amount, so it does kind of catch your attention when you see his name. But it must have been in that the cinema quick. I just totally forgotten about it as being a thing. And then today you brought it back up, so maybe I should have a look see if I can find it because I seem to recall it had pretty good reviews. Am I making that up or
Well, I think I had good reviews. Yeah.
no? Anyway, but
Uh,
strange
Sorry,
place to end. But should we move
no, no.
on to?
Before we move on, I just wanted to
Okay.
mention one more thing. I wanted to mention Doctor Dealgood again because we've mentioned him a couple of times. He's got some of the
Mhm,
best lines. His best line is at the end, the last time you see him,
mhm,
when
mhm.
everyone's chasing after the train, and he's just there's panic bar to town
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
citizens everywhere, and he just yells, "Sail, chase now, pay later." What the fuck are they paying? What are they paying for?
I don't know. Well, I was wondering what his deal was actually, because obviously, they bring him in for Thunderzone, then they bring him in for like the wheel, so he has his whole thing.
But he's the auctioneer as well. He was auctioning off the camels at
Mhm.
the beginning. So
Oh,
he's
so
the
that's his like
yeah.
that's his day gig.
I,
That's
I
like
I
that's
think his
his.
shtick is just to always be the master of ceremonies.
Oh, okay,
Wherever
okay,
you
fair
need a
enough.
mouthpiece, you'll get Dr. Dealgood.
Yeah, and I could imagine his services would be under pretty high demand. So I think that's totally fair
Yeah.
enough. But yeah,
Because
just one of those like oddly
you
memorable characters.
you get Frank Thring as the collector. So he's the guy who is taking all the stuff in, I'm
Mhm.
guessing.
He's good as well, yeah.
And then you got Dr. Dealgood who's auctioning the stuff off.
Mhm,
So at
mhm,
some
mhm.
point those pelts are going. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
so
yeah, yeah.
Jedediah is given, I'm guessing, the collect of the camels. They've gone
Mhm,
straight up.
mhm.
And what Dr. Dealgood was saying about him as well was funny. Like they're like the cars of the sand. They'll never run out of fuel. Things like that. He was saying it was like,
See, this is what I mean. I could have like they've gone to such great efforts, and that's one of the great things about George Miller movies is that tactile sense to everything in the film. Obviously, they're not going to use CG, but in 1985, but even going into Fury Road, obviously, it's one of those. I know it's one of those weird films where there are actually a lot of CG shots, but they shoot the chase sequence, all that jazz. It's like when you go to Bardstown, it feels like a real place. Like they put real effort. Everything's like you say, tactile. Like you pull this lever, this has the effect. You can feel that connection between Bardstown itself and the underworld. I'm just like, man, why didn't we just spend a bit more time there? And I know we've already discussed this, but that's one of the great things about this film. Like forever, for every wrong turn that it takes, you're never far away from something awesome happening again. And it comes back to that, the race sequence at the end, which we've hardly talked about. It's totally got all the hallmarks of a George Miller action set piece, like amazing sense of speed, all the physical effects. And unlike the movie itself, has that amazing sense of continuity and scale. It's like you feel like they're chasing for a long time. And I'm sure in reality, they probably weren't driving that fast, but nobody films chases on that scale quite like George Miller. It feels like everyone is going fast. It feels like everything is dangerous. You never stop to think. It's like, oh, is that like a stuntman doing this? It just feels legit, like it's actually happening.
Yeah.
And as I said, it's like, this film does have a wobble for a bit, but once it, literally back on the tracks with the train and everything, you're just like, oh yeah, this is a proper Mad Max movie again now. Even if the rest of the film very much feels like a unique beast, it's like once you get to that chase sequence at the end, it does remind you, like, oh, by the way, in case you forgot, you are absolutely still watching the Mad Max movie.
Before we move on, I'm sorry, I have another question.
Mm-hmm.
What? So the guy that finds the 12 pounds of the 12 pounds of dynamite or 12 sticks, wherever it is,
Mm-hmm.
he's credited as Blackfinger. His name is
Mm-hmm.
Blackfinger. In the uh in the Mad Max game, Chumbucket is a Blackfinger. He calls himself, so they're
Yeah.
mechanics. In Mad Max Fury Road,
Mm-hmm.
Tom Hardy, his Mad Max, he asks Nicholas Hoult, "Are you a Black Thumb?"
Mm-hmm.
So what came first? Was the guy credited as Blackfinger? Was that his name? Or
Mm-hmm.
did they decide the Blackfinger is a mechanic? Like you have a green thumb so you can guard and you have a black finger, you're a
I
mechanic.
think it's the latter. Yeah, I think it's
Yeah.
like that's what they refer to as, rather than that being his character. But yeah, it could have been almost like a happy accident where it's like a
Yeah.
nod almost to it, where they call him that, and then it just becomes like a vocation almost by accident kind of thing. But
I suppose. I mean, because like you said, the guy's name is Pig Killer. So I guess they're just credited as their jobs. You got the collector, you got the
Mhm.
master. So yeah.
Well, that's the thing.
But
I mean, it's for all the kind of like like I said, there is a sense of scale to this world, but in the grand scheme of things, there's not actually that many people there. So it's like this idea that most of them would just have their vocation. So it's like, oh, you're famous for doing this. You
yeah.
think at like the start of any society, if you've got relatively limited numbers, you're kind of celebrated for your specific skill sets. Like, oh, well, you're the shoemaker, you're the fucking
Yeah.
plumber, whatever kind of thing. So yeah, I can totally get that. I think
The
it makes sense.
saxophonist was credited as Tun Tun Tattoo.
Fantastic. Well, nobody does, imaginative names quite like George Miller and Mad Max
No, not
films.
at
So,
all.
you can
Yeah.
go all the way through the saga. The names are absolutely fucking bonkers from start to finish.
Right, move on before I ask another random question.
All right. Well, like the first one we were going to cover is favorite scene, and I could say, oh, it's the chase sequence at the end, but the answer is Thunderdome. The answer is absolutely Thunderdome, and one of the great things about it is that 40 fucking years later, there is still nothing quite like it. Like that
No.
was one of the things Roger Ebert in his review of this film said. It was the first truly imaginative fight sequence since like martial arts was introduced to Hollywood, like years previous. Is like this is totally unique. That was 4 years ago. I don't think there's obviously we've had very imaginative action sequences and the genre's evolved in many ways since, but I still don't think there's been anything like Thunderdome. And like to this day, you can say Thunderdome. People don't even necessarily think of the movie; they literally think of Thunderdome. I think it almost overpowers the movie, like in terms of its iconography. Like when people just think of Thunderdome, they just say, "Oh yeah, Thunderdome, the actual Thunderdome," rather than the movie Beyond Thunderdome. And
Yeah.
for good reason. That sequence, super imaginative, super memorable, really well shot. The whole thing with the whistle is really cool idea. Yeah, absolutely love it. So best scene in the film.
I knew you were going to call for Thunderdome, so I
This is the
was
right
quite
answer.
no, I was quite safe with knowing that Thunderdome would be classed as the favorite scene.
Mhm.
So I went for Jedediah Jr. just fucking his dad off. It made me
That's pretty
laugh
good.
so hard.
Yeah.
Just runs in there. And the whole thing with
Again.
Jedediah Jr. was just so funny. Like the whole stand up and deliver thing, like this
Mhm.
is a stick up. Then he sees all the guys coming behind him. He's like, fuck this, I'm out. He didn't even start. He's dad. Dad won't answer. So he just right, dad, you're on your own. He just gets in and starts the fucking plane. But even at the beginning, when Jedediah's in the plane, he jumps onto Mad Max's camel rig. He
Mhm,
goes,
mhm.
right, now straight home, son. Just leaves Jedediah Jr. to just fly straight home.
Well, you got
It's
to be able to
seven.
deal with things in the wasteland. But that's another example of like I wouldn't have hated it if they had reintroduced Jedediah and Jedediah Jr. earlier in the film alongside the Lost Boys or
Yeah.
those that are left behind, whatever their official fucking name is. And you could have had like that back and forth between the really memorable, actually funny Jedediah Jr. playing against these weird kids. I think you just needed something
I don't
to
know.
cut through the kind of mythical aspect of that
I
sequence
agree with
and
that,
all their
but
kind of Peter Pan bullshit.
I agree with that, but to an extent, because I don't know. I think the reason why I love Jedediah Jr. so much is because well, A kind of reminds me of my son. I'm pretty
Mhm,
sure my son would just say you're on your fucking own, dad.
mhm.
And B, you've got enough of him and it's perfect. I think the
I
kid
get it. I
just
get it.
sells it. I think if he starts to become part of that world,
Mhm.
he starts to become annoying as well. Although I'm pretty sure he would call out to Max and go, "Why the fuck are you going after him? Look what we got
Maybe,
here."
maybe. But then
Yeah,
I realized that all my answers, as I said earlier, it's like, I'm suddenly basically all of my answers are just geared around condensing the bit with the Lost Boys. It's like, oh, let's stretch out the stuff at Bardstown. And then you're like, oh, do we actually need to? You're right. We probably don't need to, but I just want to push it into the time that's wasted or spent at
yeah,
least on the Lost Boys. And it's the same. We don't actually need more Jedediah and Jedediah Jr. Like you said, he comes in like a fucking firecracker, delivers some fantastic lines. That's all you need. But I'm like, oh, but if we bring him in earlier, we get less of those kids talking bollocks. So basically, all of my choices in this film are just about squeezing the part of the film that I don't like. But anyway, in terms of loves and hates, my loves are number one, I say the first half, but as we found out, we're talking really the first 30, 40 minutes
yeah,
maybe.
yeah.
Number two, Gibson's magnificent mullet. Like, I don't know how he pulls it off, but if again, we've talked about another film, it's like a kind of a movie star flex. Can you still be cool while rocking something patently ludicrous? Lesser movie stars would have folded under the weight of that mullet. Mel Gibson did not. So absolutely fantastic. And number three, the great escape from Bardstown at the end. You almost forget about it. It is pure Mad Max. It doesn't quite reach the heights of arguably either the Road Warrior or Fury Road, but it's still super magical stuff. It's still totally, kind of George Miller doing his thing. And I've got a fourth one. I've got to throw it in there. It's the soundtrack, which
Yeah,
and when I do love the kind of the score as well, which I think is quite unique, very 80s, but quite fun. But it really is just, if you're gonna have Tina Turner in a movie in 1985, you better get some Tina Turner tracks in there, and they're two absolute belters.
for me, I'm going to say Mel Gibson as Max. It's his
Mhm.
third outing, right? And he hasn't phoned it in. He hasn't given up with anything. He knew exactly what he wanted to do. I mean, for him, it's only been 5 years, isn't it? I think Max was 80 or 79 or 80, something like that. Mad Max 2 was 82.
Mhm.
So it's pretty condensed
Well, this
for
was
going
still
back to this
his
character.
series then. Like, this is
Yeah,
before Lethal Weapon. This was
yeah,
like
yeah.
his thing.
So he hasn't, like I said, he hasn't phoned her in. He hasn't gone, oh, fucking another third bite of the apple. Do we really need to do this? Like, I think he's great as Max. I really do. I think he's
Mhm.
fantastic. I'm not taking anything away from Tom Hardy because I think Tom Hardy in Fury Road is perfect as well. I think Fury Road is a fucking perfect film.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah. I agree.
him in
Oh
this
no,
is
like you can
absolutely
make an argument.
fantastic. Yeah,
It's a different Max. As I said, I prefer Mel Gibson and his performance, but
yeah,
it's so different the performance, regardless of whether you think they're different characters. Like we'll push that aside, just as pure performances. The fact is, they both work in different ways. So
yeah.
I have no issue with Hardy. Like like I said, gun to my head, which one am I picking? I'm picking Mel, but I love them both. They're both fantastic. But to bring it back to you made it right at the start of the podcast, your surprise. And we had this last week when, we do our usual thing about guessing what the next film
Yeah.
is. And you didn't guess this because you just couldn't believe that it was released in 1985. I'm always surprised by that. Like in my head, even saying it then, I'm just like, oh yeah, he did his movie before he was done with Mad Max before
Yeah.
fucking Lethal Weapon even started. And in my head, I feel like like with Stallone with Rocky and Rambo, there's like that crossover period where he's playing both Rocky and Rambo. Like in my head, I'm like, oh, there was obviously this crossover period where he was both Mad Max and and Riggs. No, 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 he was Mad Max. Then that ended. Then it was like 2 years, and then he was Riggs, and that all happened. But I still struggle with the idea that the Mad Max trilogy was done by 1985. I just find it insane.
We've mentioned him a couple of times, so I'll mention my other two favorites in a second, but I don't know why I want to go off on this tangent. But I'm looking forward to Friday because it's the release of Havoc, Tom Hardy's new film that was
Oh, is it Gareth?
Gareth Evans.
Gareth Evans. Yeah, yeah. I was going
Gareth
to say I
Evans who
always
did
go
the
and say
raid.
Gareth Edwards, but that's the guy
No,
who
but he
did
was
Godzilla.
Godzilla, yeah. Gareth Evans who did the raid,
Love the raid.
but also filmed in our hometown, filmed in Cardiff.
Is it really? Havoc's filmed
90
in Cardiff.
Havoc,
Oh, fuck.
90% principal photography filmed in Cardiff.
I had
All of it.
no fucking idea. I
Yeah.
mean, I was already looking forward to seeing it, but just because it's Gareth Evans and
Yeah.
it's Tom Hardy, I'm just like, man, if you can get anywhere, if you can get like 50% towards of what the fucking raid was, I legitimately think raid is like one of the top it's definitely one of the top 5 action movies of all time. I think it's that good.
The streets of America are actually the streets of Cardiff. Yeah, it was filmed here.
It's bizarre because
So
usually when you get that, they quite often shoot in Glasgow is often a stand-in. And
yeah,
I'm not sure if you've been to Glasgow,
no,
but it makes sense. Like it's got basically boulevards, so there are parts of Glasgow which look quite a bit like Philly. So it's an easy kind of shift from like you throw in a few cabs and stuff. You're like, oh yeah, Glasgow kind of looks like Philly. Cardiff doesn't look like America. So this is going to be interesting.
Yeah, but I mean, I think it's all set at night, so maybe you can hide it because it's all set at night.
It's gonna have to be dark as fuck, bro.
But if you remember, so in 2021 we had the likes of Timothy Oliphant, Forrest Whitaker, Luis Guzman, fucking yeah, they're all, and Tom Hardy obviously, all being thrown up on social media. Like, oh, look at him in our local Marks and Spencers. Look at him on Barry Island. Oh, they've gone to Swansea.
Fantastic. Well, I was already looking for, like I said, looking forward to Havoc so much more now. I can't believe that totally passed me by. Amazing. See, this is what happens when you move up to Scotland. Nobody's making a big deal about the fact that that's filmed in Cardiff up here. Such a shame.
Sorry, so my second, like, yes, it's taken that long. Is definitely
that was totally worth it. That was a great aside.
It was a Jedediah Jr. I think he's great. For the little bits you see of him, that kid is fantastic. That is a child actor done right.
You are absolutely right, by the way. Like, the more I think about it, the more I'm just desperate to kind of, squeeze that part of the film. He's on screen for the perfect amount of time. Anything more, and he might have been annoying. Instead, he comes in, he has some great lines, he's super memorable. It's just quick, here and gone, perfect. You're absolutely right.
And finally, it is the classic George Miller frame sped up chase scene at the end. And because this is different. Great. Well, this is different to any other chasing we've had so far from George Miller. It's on a fucking train track. They can't swerve. They can't go here or there. They're literally just going straight. Luckily,
it actually perfectly suits his style of shooting, because quite often his races, like, you don't get turns because it's out in the wasteland. So like turning left and right is basically irrelevant. Really, what you need to do is outrun them. So any questions you have about it are just set aside perfectly by having a train track. So it's just like, listen, they can't go left and right anyway. It doesn't actually. The weirdest thing about it is because of the way he shoots them and because it's in the wasteland, you hardly even notice that it's on a train track. Like in another film, that would be a big part of it. It's like, oh, well, the action is dictated by the fact that it's, they're chasing a train. In this, it could just as easily be, on wheels. It would be the exact same thing, but it's still cool all the same.
But apparently the wasteland nuclear wars or whatever didn't destroy the only working train bridge, I guess. Because that was perfect.
That was one of the things I noticed. So you have Iron Bar hanging off the side of the train, and they're going over the bridge, and then suddenly it just looks very modern. Like when he's like, jumping over the things, or he's kind of leaning over the top of them, everything just looks clean and new. I was just like, it took me out of the film actually a little bit.
That's it for my loves.
In terms of hates, unsurprisingly, the second half of the movie, the kids speaking, 1, 2, 3. And I'm going to put a fourth one here as a question mark for you. So I'm not sure if it belongs in love or hate. When you think Iron Bar is finally dead at the end of the film, he goes out, you see his hands sneak out, he touches his mask, and then he flips the bird to, I don't know, us. I'm not sure how I feel about that. I couldn't decide if I loved it or I thought it was fucking amazing.
Well, considering on top of my loves was Iron Bar, on top of my hates was Iron Bar.
Okay, so we'll go with hate then.
I hated his face. I hated the doll head thing. I hated the fact that this little dude, it wasn't even the fact that usually when you get a little scrawny guy like this, who's the bad guy, he survives because of self-preservation. He always survives. Like, you think he's dead, but he just keeps surviving apparently, and he's like the strongest fucking guy going. I don't know. I just didn't click with that character at all. I really would have liked him to have just drowned in pig shit, but that didn't happen. No,
I mean, I can see what they're going for with it, because all I can think is that, because they, I think the idea was that in all three films, even though it's like a wasteland element, he wanted all three films to look different and feel distinct from each other. And I suspect a part of it is that after the second film, and is it Humongous?
Lord Humongous, yeah.
Lord Humongous. It's like, well, he's like the and stuff. So I've got like the big, huge guy in the fucking mask and everything. It's just like, well, we don't want to do that again. So he's gone right the other way and he's picked this like little dude and he's got his shtick. So I can see what he's going for, but I'm not the biggest fan of Iron Barn either.
No.
So yeah, I'm with you.
Number two for me is the kids as well.
Yeah. Has to be the
And
kids.
the third one is fucking back to the kids. Leaving this beautiful paradise where apparently water is scarce to go to Sydney. Fucking hell, just
Yeah, but I like I said, I still, if I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt, one thing is that they don't know any better. They don't know any
no,
better.
they don't know any better. So listen to your elders instead of fucking off, you
There we go. See,
stupid
said like a true father again. Will these kids just not fucking listen, little bastards? Any alternative titles for this film?
Yeah,
Other than Mad Max 3, I think it was known in some countries.
Where is it? I got so many tabs open. Here we go.
I actually read somewhere that in a lot of places it's known specifically as Mad Max 3 more than it is Beyond Thunderdome. It's actually got quite weird naming convention because there's Mad Max. I still think of Mad Max 2 as being Mad Max 2 The Road Warrior.
Yeah.
But then it's not Mad Max 3, it's Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome. And the only other movie series I can think which has got as weird numbering and naming conventions as this is actually Rambo, where you get like First Blood Part 1, First Blood Part 2, Rambo 3, and then John Rambo, or otherwise known as Rambo 4 in other countries. So yeah, the 80s and 90s, just weird with names and numbers.
All right, do you want me to go?
Yeah, go for it, buddy.
You said go and then just carried on.
Well, you look at, I was vaping. That's not vamping. I was vamping. Jesus Christ, vaping.
Bulgaria, Mad Max 3, Beyond the Cage of Death.
Yeah, sure. You're not going to find one better than Beyond Thunderdome, by the way. That title is amazing.
Croatia, Furious Max 3.
Nope.
Czech Republic, Mad Max and the Thunderdome.
No.
Greece, Mad Max, Escape from the Lightning Kingdom.
Absolutely not.
Hungary, Mad Max 3, Inside and Beyond the Hall of Justice.
Jesus Christ, no, that's terrible.
Italy, Mad Max, Beyond the Thunderball.
Nope.
Lithuania, Crazy Max, Kingdom of Thunder.
Yeah.
What else we got here? Poland, Mad Max, Under Thunderdome.
Under Thunderdome? That would just be Underworld.
Yep. Slovakia, Mad Max 3, Dome of Thunder.
No, because again, it's sounding too much like actual thunder.
Spain, Mad Max and the Throne Dome.
I mean, it's actually one of the better ones, I guess, because you could argue, like, maybe Auntie NC's have got a throne on the side. It's a stretch. It's a stretch.
Yeah. Taiwan just gave up. Literally. Taiwan just fuck it. Sequel to the Charger motor.
Sequel to the Charger motor. Yeah, really. That's got to be a Google translation issue. I'd love to think that is actually what it's called, but yeah, I think Google Translation's had a meltdown on that one.
Turkey, Crazy Max 3, Behind the Firmament.
Jesus wept.
Vietnam, Max Madness, Catch the Storm.
Again, it's far too literal. Very strange.
Because it's the translation for thunder, isn't it? That's what.
Yeah. So it's taking thunder as being literally thunder.
Yeah.
It's like, no, there's no actual thunder in this film. Thunder is just to signify that it's the 80s and it's rock and roll. That's all.
That's it. Sorry.
Oh, cool. Any facts of this film?
Yeah, but before I mention this facts, I got a question for you. Do you know when he sealed the deal, did the wheel, whatever the fuck that chant was?
Break a deal, face the wheel.
Something like that, yeah. What did the wheel land on?
No, that was it. That was definitely
okay. But what did the wheel land on?
Oh, it was the Gulag.
Oh, was it?
Gulag.
But Gulag's prison, isn't it?
Yeah. So there was like a couple. There was like, yeah, I know it's weird because when I saw this, I was just like, I never knew what a Gulag was. And then when you think about it, it's like the prison. When I hear Gulag now, I just think of Call of Duty Warzone. That's all I can think of.
It's the prison,
but, but I don't know what Gulag has got anything to do with putting a dude on a horse and putting that stupid hat on. It's just, and the hat thing as well. Even when I was younger, I always had an issue with it. I was just like, I don't get why they're putting the hat on. It feels just like, all right, we're just going to make this more unpleasant, I suppose.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think, and it's interesting actually that whole sequence and this whole idea about Auntie being a villain. Like the one the arrow just goes past is Auntie's choice, and you can see her put in her face. I think if it lands on, they're kind of suggesting that she would have just let him go.
That's right.
if
That's
it
why I
lands
thought,
on
because I
that.
didn't see
But
where it landed on. And as I'm looking at the outcomes on the wheel, because that's
Mhm.
what's going to be the fact, I thought that it would landed on Auntie's choice, and Auntie's choice was to put the mask on him and send him on his way.
No, no,
But now
no.
you're
It
saying it
was
landed on
it almost
Gulag.
yeah, yeah, it lands on Gulag, which is
Okay.
weird because I don't know how
Yeah.
Gulag translates to man on horse with giant hat.
So the possible outcomes of the wheel are acquittal, amputation, Auntie's choice, death, forfeit goods, Gulag, hard labor, life imprisonment, spin again, or underworld. And I argue
Oh, fair
hard
enough.
labor and underworld are the same thing.
Same thing for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it feels like all the work's being done by there. Although, let's be clear, every time they're just like, oh, turn the power back on, all he does, it's like, when they go down after Blaster's being like defeated, being killed,
Yeah.
and they're like, oh, no, you need to turn the power back on. And literally all he does is go up and he just turns the wheel. I'm just like, I feel
Yeah.
like you probably could have done that without him. But anyway, never mind.
So the film was originally not a Mad Max film, but a post-apocalyptic Lord of the Flies about a tribe of children who are found by an adult. It became the third Mad Max film when George Miller was suggested that Max is the man who finds the children.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Max is
this has the air of a kind of like something different that became a Mad Max movie because it feels
yeah,
so unique within the saga.
yeah. Max's eyes are different. The pupil in his left eye is permanently dilated. This is a nod to Mad Max 2 when his car is forced off the road by Wes and Max crashes. He suffers a severe injury to, among other body parts, his left eye. The disparity is easier to see in close-ups and very easy to see in high-definition versions of the film. In the regular version, it's most prominent when Max first looks down on the Thunderdome. It's
Never
a nice
noticed
little
that.
nod.
Very cool.
Max's name is only spoken once in the movie. Just after he meets Master Blaster in Underworld, Master says, "Who you?" Max replies, "Me, Max."
Oh yeah,
So,
the rest of them, he's just the man with no
yeah.
name, or
Or
Raggedy Man,
Captain Walker. Or
or
Captain
Captain
Walker.
Walker. Yeah, yeah.
This is the final movie of Angelo Rosito, who played Master, whose career lasted nearly 60 years.
Great innings. Great innings.
Yep. George Miller was given the rights to Mad Max 2 and this film to get him to step aside as the director of Contact.
That's strange, isn't it?
So Contact's been going
Ron
since...
Howard's directed that.
Yeah, so Contact's been going since 85, mind, because they gave him the rights to... Oh, no, no. So they gave him the rights in 97 to both films to get him away from Contact. So, yeah, okay. I see.
Oh, I see. Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
so Contact had been around for ages because it's what's his name? The physicist, astrophysicist, Seeger, or I forgot his name now. But the book had been out for quite a while. The book's actually really good as well. And yeah, that was like a really big deal when it came out. But it turned out to be quite a divisive movie. I actually quite like Contact. I don't think it sticks the ending, but I like the film. But it doesn't feel like a George Miller film. But then, does fucking Happy Feet feel like a George Miller film? If we're talking about him as the director of Mad Max,
Yeah.
Why couldn't he have done Contact? But obviously, they Ron Howard was pretty hot shit in '97, so I guess it made sense.
There were 600 pigs in Underworld. Now, buying that many pigs could have hurt the pork market, so they rented them from a pig farmer instead.
Nice. Back before CGC, it was just just bring it back to Indiana Jones again. You want a room full of bugs? You got to get some fucking bugs.
The kids spent 2 months in workshops learning to hunt, climb, and use primitive weapons. Everything they didn't do in the movie.
Mm-hmm. Oh, Carl Sagan. Carl Sagan. Sorry, Carl Sagan. Yeah, thank you.
Jedediah's airplane is a
Thank myself. What a wanker. Sorry.
Jedediah's airplane is a Transavia PL-12 air truck, a single-engine agriculture biplane designed by Transavia in Australia. First flown in 1965, around 120 had been built by the time this movie was made.
Ugly as shit, too. It's an ugly ass plane.
When Max is giving up his weapons in Bartertown, he gives up Wes's wrist crossbow from Mad Max 2, which he probably retrieved after Wes was killed by a truck.
Yeah, cool.
The vehicles from the movie went on tour in 1985, appearing in car shows around Australia. What else we got here?
Right. I just while you mentioned that, when you grew up, did you think of this as being a specifically Australian movie? Because I did not.
No. So I always, and I've said this before, I've always thought when I grew up, they were just American. Only when I got the DVD of Mad Max did I realize it was full Australian, because they've dubbed all the Australian accents for the US market. So the ones we had were the US dubs. But if you watch the actual DVD, you can have the original soundtrack, which is the original.
Oh, and it's all Australian.
So they're all
accents.
Australian. Yeah.
Well, that makes me feel bad because I like I don't think I ever had some like I can't remember having this realization. I just found out at some point that it's just like, well, obviously it's set in Australia. But I know for a fact when I was younger that I never thought, I don't think I even watched it and thought I don't think I ever really thought about it. I just thought of it like this post-apocalyptic world. I just never thought of it as being specifically Australian when I was younger.
Growing up, you don't think anywhere else makes movies except Hollywood.
Yeah,
That
probably.
was it. That was what we thought. It was all just America. But
Yeah,
then you
yeah.
realize, oh no, other countries make films.
Yeah, it's
They
crazy,
do.
right?
Yeah.
Well, I think you
Uh,
just kind of assume that if they're speaking English and they're predominantly white, you're just like, well, if they don't sound British, then it's America. That was
yeah.
it.
The pilot who appears at the end, whilst played by the same actor who played the gyrocopter pilot in Mad Max, is not the same character, as he replaced the actor who was originally cast as the pilot late into production. Though
Crazy.
fans feel he could be given that the fact he did survive with the community and one of the women had taken a liking to him in the last film, which could have resulted in his son. Everything
They
I've
could
just
have.
said.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It totally
Yeah.
makes sense that he'd be the same. Like he flies a plane, he's got a kid. It all makes sense. He's done relatively well for himself in the grand scheme of like wastelands things. But it's bizarre that he's a different character. But I guess, like you said, that makes sense that they wrote it for someone else. It was a different character played by someone else, and he's just kind of stepped in.
Well,
But
it's what we said as well. Like, and what you linked to, when I said he flew in in the second one, he flew in this one, so
yeah,
obviously it
yeah.
could be linked to the same character.
Well, yeah,
But that's
it's just
probably what
I
happened.
guess because there's no reason for you to think otherwise. Like
Well,
that, like
that's probably what happened with George Miller. The guy pulled out, and he's like, "Who the fuck can we get to play a pilot?" Oh wait, I got
yeah,
Bruce Spencer's number.
well, I love the fact George Miller also just doesn't give a fuck. We mentioned it earlier in the podcast with the whole continuity, the timelines. They're so vague. It's so inconsistent. I think George Miller's just like, I don't give a shit. I'm just making movies, dude.
Right, two more, and then I will finish it there. So the chair that Anti-Entity rides down in the Thunderdome was kept by Tina Turner after filming. It can be seen displayed in a living room during her 60-minute interview in 2003.
That is
Just a
very
Mad
cool.
Max throne.
Before she moved to, I went to Zurich earlier this year, and I did a tour while I was there, and they went to great lengths to bang on about the fact that Tina Turner was much loved in Zurich, that she became a Swiss citizen and spent like the last like 15, 20 years of her life
Oh, fair enough.
in Zurich, living next to Lake Zurich, which I can assure you would be a lovely place to live. Absolutely gorgeous around there.
What a way to end. Right, listen. Angry Anderson's character, Iron Bar, was named in a mocking reference to Australian politician of the 70s and 80s, Wilson Iron Bar Tuckey, who got his nickname because he was charged with using an iron bar to beat up an Aboriginal man who was being held down. Tuckey had a reputation as a petty tyrant who wasn't afraid to fight dirty, similar to Anderson's character in the movie. Fucking deep cut.
Unfucking believable. Goddamn Aussies, right? Unbelievable.
Deep cut.
Hope to the future. So it's where we ask a question: remake, sequels, let it die, leave well alone. Well, I would more than
So
happily have.
can I interject before we
Yeah, go for it.
say so we need to actually think of this because Mad Max, as we've said with Hug to the Future, it's we need to think about this film
Mhm.
because Max, for the stories and everything else, we've already said I could see more random stories. Would you want to see anything of the future of Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome?
Well, no, you can't. I think in this instance, like it's basically, do you want a sequel to Thunderdome? Like, I don't think of it as in. On the one hand, you could have, do you want just more Mad Max films? The answer is yes. I would love. They're already
Yeah,
talking about doing Mad Max: The Wastelands. But if you said more specifically, do I want if we kind of almost, like you said earlier, Fury Road is its own thing. It's the Tom Hardy saga, just kind of put that
yeah.
over on the side. Do I want a direct sequel to Thunderdome starring an old Mel Gibson back as Mad Max? The answer was 100% yes. I can't think of many things that could get announced that would be more exciting than if George Miller said, "Oh, listen, I'm going to do a sequel specific to the Mel Gibson films. Mel Gibson's coming back. He's playing Max again, but as like a fucking 70-year-old grizzled Max in like set in the distant future." Absolutely, absolutely. So the answer is yes to me.
So if I'm looking at a remake of this, I don't want a remake of Beyond Thunderdome. I don't need it. The sequel thing is tricky because of what we get with these kind of films. Like you said, we've already said it before. The narratives from unpredictable, unreliable characters.
Mm-hmm.
Max could be 6 foot tall. He could be 4 foot tall. You don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but I don't want to let it die either. So I just think when it comes to Thunderdome, you just leave it alone. Just leave it alone. It's perfect. It's not perfect the way it is, as we'll see in Make a Change.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, just leave it alone. It's a good film, and it just needs to be left alone for
Oh,
this
in
one.
terms of like Thunderdome, yeah, I wouldn't like
Yeah,
remake Thunderdome. But if you're asking me, it's like, do I want more of that version of Max? Like, I would. Like, we said about this before, like the dangers of doing sequels 20 years later. But there are certain ones where you can make it work, where it's not a legacy sequel. We're talking a direct sequel. It's like when we did the Conan the Barbarian podcast. It's like, do I want to see Conan 3 starring like Arnold Schwarzenegger as King Conan in
King
his
Conan. Yeah,
70s?
yeah.
Absolutely. Do I want to see what Mad Max, that version of Mad Max specifically, is doing in his 70s? 100%. That's what I want. So I'd love to see a sequel. I don't think it's ever going to happen, but if it's left well alone, fair enough. Because as a trilogy, I think it works really well. I know this film is the most inconsistent of those original three films, but it's still loads of fun. So yeah, take it either way, I suppose. In terms of making a change, pretty easy. Just tone down the fucking kids. And it's not just the kids in their chat. Like you said, this tonally takes a big shift. And I think that's like, when people talk about the issue of the Disneyfication of this movie, really they're talking about that sequence. And it plays out not just in the way they talk, it's beyond the fact that he does punch a young girl in the face. The music, it all suddenly feels like an Amblin movie, but without maybe the charm that comes with those things. Or maybe just the fact that it does have the charm, but it just feels completely out of place in the movie. So yeah, make a change. It's just kind of, you've got to do something with that sequence, or maybe even just get rid of it completely and just put the emphasis more specifically on Bardstown.
I wouldn't get rid of it completely, but I would have less of it. I think. I just think you need. Well, I tell you what, if we're gonna make a change, get rid of the fucking storytelling. I don't need that 5 minutes where they're just speaking randomly and they're having this story within
That's
that. That's the thing that drags it out. The kids
Well,
rescue him.
How about this then? The same film, right? Same film. Kids are in it. Everything's the same. Only they don't talk like wankers.
I'm
Like
good with that.
I
But
think I could.
also,
I think I could totally get on board with that. If they didn't talk like absolute bellends, I think I'd be fine with the movie.
I don't think I need the story either. Like I said, or the view from they rescue him, they cut his hair, they think he looks like the captain. That's fine. You're getting all the hints all over the walls anyway. You don't need the full story about all of the, and that's when the talking comes into it. So yeah, I mean, get rid of the talking. Sorry, not talk. Get rid of their speech.
The weird intonation and
Yeah,
their
and
speech
then
patterns. I
maybe
think
just cut down the storytelling that they tell, and I'm good with it.
Speaking of storytelling, and we didn't mention, like, we just talk about the ending, and the idea is Max going to go back and save the kids. I think we both decided no, he was just going to wander off and do his own thing. And Auntie was going to go back and rebuild Bardstown. Fine. They then go to a sequence where obviously they go to Sydney and she's reading the story. It's her fucking telling stories again. But I've got to believe that they blew a pretty large proportion of the budget in those final shots because
Yeah.
considering there's no CG and it must have all been done with what's the word I'm looking for? Not sets, the miniatures.
Yeah.
You know what I'm getting at. Anyway, they built like a part of like Sydney, the city, and all that jazz. I'm just like, none of that could have come cheap in 1985, and I just feel like they blew a lot of it on a part of the film that everybody's just kind of forgotten. It's just, when they kind of go through the city, I'm just like, it looks kind of cool. It's aged relatively well because it was shot in 1985. But yeah, I just got to believe that was a proportion of the budget at least. But anyway, maybe I'm just making that up.
That's it. Yeah, for making a change. So what's
Oh,
next?
fair enough. Sorry, I kind of completely derailed that then. In terms of video games, it's going to be this is easy. We did the same thing with Mad Max, The Road Warrior. It's a sequel to Avalanche Studios' Mad Max games. It's absolutely one of the most underrated games of the 360 series. I love that game as it is, but if ever there was a game that could have been like a sequel, could have absolutely knocked out of the park, it's Avalanche's Mad Max. It's so close to being a perfect game that you just like a little bit, the big criticism is a bit repetitive. If you had a bit of gloss that, a bit more budget, and maybe, dare I say, bring in Mel Gibson and have his likeness. Like that's how you really bring back Mel Gibson. In the same way that they brought back Harrison, but even though it's not voiced by Harrison Ford, I'm thinking Harrison Ford, Indiana Jones and the Great Circle is proof positive that you can do that Indiana Jones sequel that we wanted with, the Harrison Ford as you remember him. You just do it in a video game. They could absolutely do that with a Mad Max video game. You could bring back Mel, even do somebody who sounds like him. If it's good enough, that absolutely works, but you just have his likeness. But to be honest, if it was just a direct sequel to the Avalanche game with the same character model and everything, I'd be more than happy. I just want more of that game, basically.
So I agree because that would have been my answer. It's more of that. But then the more I thought about it, the problem with that game is there's not enough driving as in this film. So if I was going to look at something else,
Oh,
I'd
if
probably
you were thinking specifically at a Beyond Thunderdome game kind
yeah.
of thing. Yeah,
So
gotcha.
if I'm looking at like not the Mad Max character, but a Beyond Thunderdome
Hmm.
game, it kind of feels like Horizon Zero Dawn,
Hmm. No, I think
like
you're right.
like that especially when you're in like I said the Oasis kind of thing. That
Yeah.
but you can have the desert side of it and everything like that. So maybe a Horizon Zero Dawn esque game with a Mad Max skin kind of thing. I think would work.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
Guerrilla Games would obviously have like they do very pretty games, that's for sure. And
yeah,
yeah, you make an argument that a Beyond Thunderdome video game specifically would have more on foot sections and it would
yeah.
have racing sections. So yeah, if I was just doing a Mad Max game, I want just the sequel to Avalanche's game. But I think you're absolutely right. If you're doing a specifically a Beyond Thunderdome video game, I think excuse me, Horizon is absolutely bang on. So great chat.
Sweet.
Best
Uh,
and worst of IMDb. So this is where we pick a random 10 and 1 star review and see what the psychos think about this film. Well, I say psychos, that's a bit harsh, but quite often you get people with very extreme opinions of whatever films. I mean, let's be clear, this isn't a 10-star or a 1-star film, but some people think it is. So let's hear what they have to say.
how many reviews in total do you reckon?
622.
313.
Oh, I thought it'd be a bit more than that.
Yeah.
10-star, I'll go with 71.
27.
Oof,
Yeah.
way off this week. 1 star, oh, we'll get to that in a minute.
Yeah. So this was written in November 99.
Mhm.
It's a long time ago. Uh, one of the greatest teaching supplements ever. This is one of the best teaching instruments for comparative government ever made, and a great action film as well. After studying comparative ideology and systems, have students watch and compare the communities of Bartertown and the crack in the earth. They love it, and they learn from it. Trust me, I've been using it for 10 years now, and it never ceases to amaze me the genuine academic and intellectual discussion you can get a class to have concerning Max. It's even better than Gulliver's Travels.
I think there's something. It's a weird review, but I think there's
Yeah,
something to that. As I mentioned earlier, the whole idea of like Auntie as being a politician, the fact that she's not a villain, she's trying to reestablish government and some sense of civilization. And on the one hand, you've got that, and on the other hand, you've got like these kids who are just hidden away from the world, sitting in an oasis, and what would come of that. So I think you could have some really interesting conversations. I don't think the film quite nails it in terms of encouraging those conversations, but if you force the issue, there's encouraging conversations to be had. I don't think it necessarily means it's a 10-star film, but interesting all the same.
right. How many one stars?
More or less? Less?
Yeah,
17.
10.
No, fair enough.
10. Uh, so this was written in August 2006, titled Redefines Suck. Every
I
time
don't
I've
think this is
seen,
going to be quite as academically leaning as the last one.
well, I don't know. I don't know. It uses the word dumber. So
Oh,
hang on a
fair enough,
second.
fair enough.
Every time I've seen this movie, I get the same impression. Some parts of it are so amazingly stupid slash bad that they crack me up. They aren't intentional. And there are a lot of them. The rest is just plain bad, stupid, and slash or irrelevant. A movie like Evil Dead gets credit for being bad as its own expenses, at its own expense because it's the intended result. It's stupid and cheesy because Sam Raimi has succeeded at what he was trying to do. This movie doesn't have that excuse. It's stupid and cheesy because the filmmakers failed so miserably. The crap results gets heaped on top of the crap writing and crap performances to make it a shame that the lowest rating a movie can be given is one for awful. Watching this movie has the same effect as listening to a Billy Madison essay. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I should be able to give this movie something around a -5.
Yeah, so I'm going to say
Ooh.
that that review wasn't particularly academic. I also think he's missed the point of both Evil Dead and Beyond Thunderdome there. So
Yeah.
yeah, that was definitely one of the crazier reviews, and I
I
disagree quite strongly with it.
I bet you never thought that Mad Max and Billy Madison would be mentioned in the same sentence
Yeah, he's just
ever.
naming films he's seen at this
Yeah.
point. So yeah, maybe he's kind of like, oh, this is sound intellectual if I name movies I've seen. But no, that was a pretty rough review. I actually really enjoyed the 10-star one. But
Yeah.
yeah, like I said, unsurprisingly, when it comes to our own reviews and recommendations, I know we use a 5-star system, but I'd be surprised if either of us give us a 1 or a 5-star. In fact, I'm going to be surprised if either of us give us anything other than a 3. But I think the big question really will be whether you recommend it or not. For me, it's a 3 and it's a yes. I still think this is a totally watchable film. I think it's super iconic. I think it's loads of fun. As we've mentioned in the podcast, it definitely has its problems, but I think it holds up really well, especially if you watch this in Blu-ray or you watch it in Ultra HD. This is a good-looking movie. And I actually think, like as we said, Road Warrior is a better movie. I think this is the most accessible for sure. If you had someone who's just like they've never seen a Mad Max film, like if it was just like your Auntie Susie or something like that, and she's like, which Mad Max film should I watch? I'd be like, watch this one for sure. Definitely watch this one. I think it's easily the most accessible, even if it is the weakest in its own way. But yeah, it's a 3 and a yes for me.
So I agree it's the most accessible if you go into the general public, the general
Yeah, yeah.
audience. It is definitely a 3, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm not too sure I could recommend it. Now, it's quite hard to think of post-apocalyptic films anyway that you would recommend. They're
Mm-hmm.
not something they have their own niche and they have their own audience.
Mm-hmm.
So to the general public, I probably wouldn't recommend this film. And
I always
if
think
we're
of it
looking at
like
the general
this,
public, then I probably wouldn't.
because we can have too high a bar, and this is one of the things we kind of go back on what kind of defines a recommend or not. Rather than it being like you going out of your way to tell someone you have to see this, if it came up in conversation with someone in work and they're just like, "Oh, Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome is on tonight. Shall I watch it?" I
Oh,
would
then
always just be
yes.
like,
Then
I'd be like,
yes.
yeah, yeah, go on,
Yeah,
give it a
yeah.
go. So I know what you mean. Like, would I go out of my way and tell someone, look, dude, you've got to watch Beyond Thunderdome? No. But if someone's like, oh, is this worth watching? I'm like, yeah, yeah, it's still totally fun. And most importantly for our podcast, and the whole question is like, does it hold up? It totally holds up in so much of a way that this was a 3-star movie in 1985, and it's a 3-star movie now. Like, there's nothing about this film where you're like, oh, that's a bit of a rough watch. Or like, we said, oh, there's some very 80s things, but they were all super fun. Some of the films we go back to, we always refer to it as like there are hurdles you need to get over with certain films.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, we have the nostalgia for it. Be like, man, if you watch this for the first time, that might look a bit ropey or that's a bit old fashioned or whatever. But I think, if you get over the whole fact that, yes, Tina Turner's in it and stuff, even though she's awesome, it does give it a certain 80s vibe. This film looked fucking great. Like it's
So
just it's like I said, it's just as good today as it was in '85. But the problem is, it wasn't great in '85. It was a 3-star movie 40 years ago. It's a 3-star movie now.
so I say 210-ish episodes in, we actually define this section. And
Mhm.
we say you've already hit the nail on the head. If somebody says to me, would you recommend I watch
Yeah,
this
let's
film?
go with that then.
So
Yeah,
yeah, would you recommend I watch this film? And it's either fuck no or yes.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
because
good with
like you
that.
said, there are films, and just to be clear, there are films that we would give better ratings to this because we have like a nostalgia and we love, like, we might give it a 4-star and be like, oh, we love this movie. But then if someone asked me, it's like, just a rando in work, it's, oh, should I watch this? It's on movie tomorrow. I might still be no for those
Yeah.
reasons I just mentioned, where you're just like, there might be just too many hurdles. If you didn't grow up with it, it's going to be rough. Whereas this has like no hurdles. It's
Maybe
like you
the other
said,
way.
it still looks great.
It'd be a film I give a 2-star because I'm critical towards it because that's
Mhm.
what we're doing. But I had fun with it. So if somebody
Yeah, yeah,
said,
yeah,
"Would
yeah.
I watch it?" You say, "Yeah, it's a fun ride. Just watch it." I
Yeah,
mean,
so
don't
some
expect.
films
Yeah,
are not masterpieces, but they've just for a 40-year-old movie, this is aged as well as any movie I can think of.
yeah,
Because
agreed.
because there are very few, as I said, beyond like, but even the things which signify like kind of put this in the 80s, like the hair and the shoulder pads and stuff, because that's lived on in popular culture. It doesn't necessarily put it in the 80s. It just puts it in the wasteland because if
Yeah,
you like we said, this has been so it's had such a big impact on popular culture. And like if you put on like a video game now, I mentioned them earlier, like Fallout, Borderlands, all these games which are set in a post-apocalyptic world. All the bad guys look exactly the same as they do in this game. They still have the shoulder pads, they still have the mohawks. I mean, Fist of the North Star is going. I'm not sure if you've ever watched Fist of the North Star, but Ken is literally dressed like Mad Max.
yeah.
Like he's got the shoulder thing and everything. He's just Mad Max. So it's just completely lived on in popular culture. So
I love the live
on one
action.
hand, it feels 80s, but it also feels oddly contemporary as well.
We've said it before. I love the live action. I love
Oh
the
my
live action one. I do.
God, I believe
Harry
you.
Daniels.
I hate it.
Daniels
I
is
was
great.
so disappointed. I grew up with the anime and I fucking
Yeah,
loved the anime. And I put on the movie and I was like, what the fuck is this? I was so disappointed, dude.
yeah.
Admittedly, I haven't gone anywhere near it since like 1991.
I
But
watched the live action before I watched the original animes.
oh, that might have actually helped because you don't have
Yeah,
like I had that like I can't believe they've done a live action version of this, a movie which had such a big impact on my youth. I think I mentioned before there was like this handful of like anime films I was introduced to when I was like eight,
yeah.
9 years old. And it was like Akira, Fist of the North Star, whatever. And then, this idea is like, oh, imagine if they did like a live action version of Akira. And it's like, oh, dude, they've done a live action version of Fist of the North Star. And then I saw it. And oh my God, to say I was disappointed would be an understatement. But
Yeah, yeah,
perhaps I
yeah.
need to revisit. Who knows? So yeah, that's been Mad Max and Beyond Thunderdome. That was the third part of our End of the World series of podcasts. So there's one left, and sir, it is your choice.
It is. Now I've had a difficulty trying to figure out. I mean, end of the world. Like I said, we started off with end of the world is what's the word?
Apocalyptic.
Apocalyptic. So we went with like Armageddon. You went with Armageddon, but I don't really do disaster films, so I chose
Yeah,
I chose like
the
post-apocalyptic.
more we've talked about this, the more I'm just like, how did we get onto this? Like, do an end of the world season when it was like after the first episode, I don't really like these movies. I was like, well, when did we agree to this? This is insane.
So we ended up with like post-apocalyptic. Now I did Solar Babies. You
Totally
did
worth it.
Mad Max Beyond
No, that was
Thunderdome.
the reason. That was the reason we agreed because I wanted to do Armageddon. You wanted to do Solar Babies. And we're just like, that was enough. We're like, oh, we'll do an End of the World series. There were no follow-up questions. As if, how was I to know that Solar Babies is bizarrely the only
Yeah.
post-apocalyptic film you like? Absolutely insane.
So I've been looking at like I said, post-apocalyptic, end of the world kind of stuff. And loads of things have come up that we haven't even like. So I think at some point we need to do a zombie season because
Yeah,
there's
yeah, yeah.
films I'd love to do. There's like 28 Days Later. Uh
That's an interesting one. 28
there's
days later,
Dawn
you
of the
mentioned that.
Dead.
Clearly that's an end of the world movie, but I mentally have compartmentalized that in horror. Like I never
Yeah,
even because obviously I was like having a think like, well, what should I do after Armageddon? And it actually took me a while to land on Beyond Thunderdome. I never even considered a zombie film because I just obviously my brain has just said that's horror.
yeah,
But 28 days later would have been a great chance. So yeah, I think a zombie
yeah.
season would be
The
awesome.
2004 remake, Dawn of the Dead, is the same thing. It's end
Awesome
the world
shout.
is ending. Things like that.
That film's
So
dope.
at some point, I know we got a couple of seasons. We'll have to chuck a zombie season in at some point as well.
So what seasons have
But
we got coming up? We've got zombie season, American sports season, and I think we've got one other as well.
yeah, it was a flop, wasn't it? I mean,
Oh,
spoiler for flop season, just because you want to revisit Waterworld.
I just feel like no, because we wanted to like Cutthroat Island, maybe. All of us, we just
Oh
kept
yeah,
talking
yeah,
about all these
yeah.
films which are flops. We did talk briefly about Postman, but we were talking on
Well,
WhatsApp yesterday,
Postman,
and he reminded me it's 3 fucking hours long. I'm like,
yeah,
I'm
that
not
says
sure if I want to rewatch that.
Postman was nearly my choice for End of the World just because I'm a twat. But then I realized I don't have much time to watch a 3 hour film, so you're getting off light. I've
Yeah, all of
picked
a sudden you're like, oh fuck, I've got to watch this too. Jesus
yeah,
Christ.
I've picked a 2 hour film. Okay,
Mhm.
so it's quite late in the films that we pick. It's a 2007 film.
Okay.
I'm just gonna go straight out, right? It's 2007. It's we both love this film, and it's based on a Stephen King book. You got it straight away.
Oh, it's The Mist.
It's The Mist. It
That's a great chat. That is a great because that is a different kind of end of the world film. Because usually we think of zombies or you think of monsters. Like this is like an eldritch horror. It's a
yeah,
completely unique beast in many respects. That is the right term, isn't it? Eldritch horror when you have all the fucking
yeah,
tentacles and all that
I
bollocks.
believe so. Yeah,
Yeah, this is a film we both love with one of the great endings in cinema history, without question. We won't go
the
into it now.
great
If you
ending.
haven't seen it, by the way, I know bizarrely because my I was talking about this movie not too long ago. My wife wants to see it as well. It's on Amazon Prime if you want to watch it. And if you haven't seen it, don't watch the TV show. Watch the movie. It's
Oh, please do.
really good.
And it's fantastic because we both love the book as well. We both love Stephen King. He's our favorite author.
Mhm.
And this is such a great remastering of his work, I believe. Look,
Well, it's one of the better ones for sure.
yeah.
Isn't
So
it? Who directs this? It's
it's Frank Darabont.
yeah. See, Frank Darabont does all the best Stephen King adaptations. Like that is his
Well,
fucking specialist
Frank
subject.
Darabont, and lately it's been what's his name? The guy who's done House,
Oh, oh yeah, House on Haunted Hill. It's not called that.
no, it's the House of like Usher.
The House of Usher, and then the Hill on Haunt, Haunting on Hill House.
Haunting on Hill House, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah. He's really good as well. But Frank Darabont, in terms of bringing Stephen King to the big screen, like he's done a lot of the best ones. And this is like right up there. I'm not saying it's the best one, but the great thing about this is that in many respects, it's as good as the novella. The big difference is this has got a better ending. Yeah. It's got like the book has a happy ending. Spoiler alert, this movie does not have a happy ending. This has got a fucking all-timer of an ending. I won't say any more in case you haven't seen it and in case you're interested in watching it ahead of next week's podcast. But like I said, 2 hours, well worth a watch. Fantastic ending. And hopefully you get a chance to give it a watch before we cover it next week on the podcast. But great chat, man. Great chat.
What the fuck is that guy's name? It's really doing my head in. I can't leave it until we figure out what his name is.
Oh my God, it's legitimately on the tip of my tongue.
Yeah. I can't find any of the stuff he's done either at the moment. House of Usher, Netflix. Was it House of Usher?
Yeah, I'm sure it was. And they're all based on House of Usher is based on the thing is if you put that in
Mike Flanagan. Fucking Mike Flanagan.
I was gonna say it might come up with was it Edgar Allan Poe wrote is that based on his story? I think it might be a Allan Poe short story. I might be making that up, but
no. So loosely based on the various works by Edgar Allan Poe.
Yeah, I've read it. It is loosely based on because obviously, it's one of those weird ones. It wasn't a period piece when it was written because it was written so long ago. But obviously, it's set in the kind of 100
So
years
sorry.
ago kind of thing.
So Mike Flanagan, who gave us Doctor Sleep, Gerald's Game, and The Life of Chuck. Now he's directed these three coming up.
Just to be clear. Those are, Doctor Sleep and Gerald's Game are good films. They're not quite in the same league as Frank Darabont's.
But what I'm saying, the reason why I'm trying to big up Mike Flanagan when it comes to Stephen King is because he now has the rights to my favorite series, The Dark Tower. So,
I mean, we're putting. Don't get me wrong. That is my favorite Stephen King collection of books as well, without question. So I'm a bit of a slight apologist for the movie that was released in 2015, 16, whatever it was. But somebody has to do. I don't think it's as bad as some people. If I kind of remove,
you're on about the Idris Elba one.
Yeah.
2017.
I think it did. Yeah, I think that film did actually some things right. And the thing that drives me craziest about that movie is that I think there's a genuinely good movie there and that they made so many of the right choices and then just fucked it by rushing it and just condensing it. I'm just like, why would you bother fucking do that? Just do the first book. Anyway, doesn't matter. But yeah, Mike Flanagan, I think he's a really good shout for the Dark Tower series, and hopefully they give it let's be honest, the breathing space that the source material requires. But to bring it back to in terms of taking one of it, a lot of the books he takes are actually novellas, of taking those and putting them on, turn them into 2-hour movies. Frank Darabont is unquestionably the master of it, and
fucking Shawshank
seen in this movie.
Shawshank, Green Mile. Oh yeah, I totally agree. I can't wait to. I haven't watched this film for a while. So I can't wait to do this film again. Honestly.
Yeah, I think it'll be really good. That's a really good shout. So yes, please do join us next week for the last part of our End of the World series of podcasts. Anything else to add before we wrap this up?
No, mate, all good for me.
Cool. I've been Liam, he's been Rob, and you've been listening to Hey Guys Podcast. See you next week for The Mist. Cheers, guys. Bye-bye.
Cheers, guys. Bye now.
Oh, and before I forget, where can folk reach us if they were so inclined to?
Well, you can actually reach us on Hey You Guys 80s at Facebook, Instagram, and on Twitter. But if you want to send us a mail, do heyyouguys80s@gmail.com. Send us in your recommendations. Send us in your thoughts about any of the episodes. Just literally talk to us. We'll have a one-sided talk with you on the podcast.
Yeah. We're nice folk. Get in touch. But no, cheers, guys. Bye-bye.
Cheers, guys. Bye now.
Hey, you guys!